Let me ask you this. What if the love of your life was stolen right before your eyes? She's screaming your name, begging you to save her, but you're completely powerless. Your legs won't move, no courage, no strength, and the great mage watching just says it's pointless, that in this world, power is everything. And for reasons even he doesn't understand, she's taken away by a power known as existence itself, a law above all others. That day completely scarred Arudo's soul. He dedicated his entire life to a single purpose, the pursuit of power, for more than 60 long years. He tried every method, even attempting to conquer the world's most dangerous dungeon, and right there at the very end he died. He lived an entire life chasing power, only to fail, but after his death, he found himself standing before God, turns out, possessing the tear of God earned him a private meeting in the afterlife. God offers him a choice: rest his soul forever or go back and relive a life of pure suffering. Now what would you choose? To save her, to save everyone, he chooses to be reborn and walk that painful path again. And just like that, our main character gets his second chance, sent all the way back to the moment he was born. He sees his parents again, his mother beautiful with long hair and his father who is still alive. This time he is determined not to waste a single second. He wants to start training right now, but well, his newborn body can't even stand up. Then he notices something new from his last life. A system window, displaying all of his stats and skills right in front of him. And it's something that only he can see. Barely a month old, the kid starts trying to speak, actually thinking he's succeeding. Then he remembers what God told him. He was allowed to choose a gift. When he asks about it, God explains that every single person is born with a special blessing, a gift like the gift of unbalanced wisdom, the gift of broken martial arts, or the gift of absurdly overpowered magic, or even the gift of infinite charisma. It could also be the gift of inventive genius, or one last one, the gift of creation. In his past life, Arudo had the gift of wisdom. God asks if he wants that one again. But this time he asks for something different, the gift of creation. And yep, I know what you're thinking. See, with his past life's knowledge, he knew about the 5 major gifts, but he had never heard of creation before. It was a complete unknown, so obviously he went for it. The first thing he notices is that system window, something that shouldn't exist in this world. He figures it must be tied to his new gift, but beyond saving the one he loved. Our main character also remembers his parents, who died when he was just 8. It had been so long, the memories were faded. It all happened on the night of his 8th birthday, a goblin attack on his village. All he really recalls is pain, his father sacrificing himself so his wife and son could just escape. And when even that wasn't enough, his mother threw him as far away as she could and screamed at him to run, to survive alone. With no other choice, he ran. And we all know how vile goblins are, so you can imagine what happened after he got away. But enough of the sad stuff for now, because in this second life, things will be different. He's going to change everything. First step, study to grind up his intelligence and mental power stats. He studied so hard that his own mother thought something was wrong. While teasing his father, he was secretly training his mana. You see that, while other kids his age were eating dirt, our boy was already on his legendary grind. Trust me, you're about to see how a kid trains for doomsday by doing parkour. And every time Arudo found a new skill, the same thing happened. 8 years just fly by in a flash. Arudo sits under a tree, perfecting his innate musical talent and skills, which just kept getting stronger. When his mom comes home, she wishes Arudo a happy 8th birthday. She's so happy she pulls him into a hug so tight, he thinks he might actually break. His dad jokes that Arudo got all his good looks from him, then proudly announces it's time to start his training immediately, an idea his mom completely loves. She wishes him happy birthday again, reminding him about his trip to the church later, and of course he agrees. It was a tradition for all 8-year-olds to get a special bracelet. These things were basically their identity cards, and now it was Arudo's turn. The priest tells Arudo to hold out his hands. Arudo, standing there in the church, does as he's told, and the priest slips a magic bracelet onto his wrist. The priest tells him it's better to head to the big city with this, then warns him not to lose it. With the new bracelet secured on his arm, Arudo's mind immediately shifts. And pay close attention, because this is where everything changes. He starts thinking about the goblins, due to attack the village in hours. He had to get a grip, the moment was here. Remembering his past life, Arudo knew he was the only one who could save this village. After leaving the church, he heads for the forest and pulls up his skill board to check his stats. He takes a quick look at his current status. Arudo figures he needs to hit level 15 just to get a decent physical boost. His magic, though, already at level 32, giving him full control over every skill he's learned these 8 years. The only skill that was still a mystery was his ability to create different functional items. He realizes he'd never even tried to use it before. It just wasn't a skill he had back then. Figuring it wouldn't hurt his combat ability, Arudo decides to finally activate it. And that's when he realizes the goblins are already here, in the forest. He spots them and ducks behind a tree. 3 goblins, probably scouts, were closing in. Arudo tells himself to just stay calm. He'd taken down countless monsters before. The goblins spot Arudo peeking from behind the tree and immediately charge. This is it, his first real fight in his second life. Let's see the payoff. Concentrating his magic, Arudo focuses on all his years of training. He couldn't afford any regrets. He was this village's only shot. Arudo unleashes a scorching fire attack right at the goblins. After taking out the first one, he feels a small victory, but knows it's far from over. As he lunges for the second goblin, the third one attacks him from behind. He barely dodges, realizing one wrong move could be his last. After wiping out all 3 goblins, he knew he had to make his attacks much stronger. He was lucky these weren't tougher monsters. The second Arudo finishes them, a level-up notification pops up on the system screen. He feels a sudden jolt of satisfaction. He beat them and got a level for it. The power-up leaves him feeling a little dizzy, almost drunk on his own strength. But then another goblin rushes him, sword raised, and manages to wound him. He wondered, is this a new wave of goblins? But stick with me, the real threat was much bigger. Arudo glanced back and saw it, an entire horde. He'd been caught completely off guard with an injured arm. Fighting these numbers seemed straight up impossible. A familiar despair washed over him. Nothing had changed, not a single thing. No matter how much he struggled, he couldn't change his fate. He thought of her. A memory of his beloved flashed in his mind, and then a fierce resolve ignited. He refused to give up. He just wished he'd tried harder, and right here, this is where it all changes. His magic power surged to level 50, granting him a new skill, Grave Reaper. As Arudo saw the system window announce the level up, he finally understood. He'd acquired a crafting skill. Its true power, he now realized, was locked. It would only manifest at higher levels, so that's why it didn't work before. Just as he had this realization, the goblin horde swarmed in from behind him. He wondered if they sensed his weakness, not his newfound power, as they closed in. Ready for the kill, what now? A moment later, a goblin lunged right at him. Arudo dodged its sword by a hair, realizing how close he was to another wound. He retaliated, unleashing a fireball right back at the goblins. But with his injured hand, it was way harder, and their assault was relentless. The onslaught intensified when a huge group of 8 goblins rushed Arudo. But this time he felt he could fight them off, forcing himself to believe in his strength. Arudo immediately activated his new skill, Grave Reaper, using his magic. He sent the goblins tumbling into the gorge below, had he actually done it. It was a grave crafting skill. Looking at his own hands, Arudo felt pure joy. A surge of hope told him his fate could finally change now that he'd saved the village. At that moment, the system showed another huge level increase, probably from the fight. He recalled hearing that a level up this massive often came with a price. An opportunity to advance, but it was almost always followed by intense pain. With that thought, Arudo lost consciousness. He then opened his eyes. He was cold, and something was fluttering near his face. Suddenly, he spotted a creature which promptly hopped away. So what in the world was that? A beautiful slime stood before him, revealing its head. Arudo saw a liquid. He wondered if he should drink it, after taking a sip from the slime's head. Arudo found it was surprisingly beneficial. The slime just kept hopping. It completely captured his attention. What was this creature? Observing it, Arudo concluded the slime wasn't a dangerous monster. In fact, it seemed pretty friendly. Then, it suddenly jumped right onto Arudo's face. He had no idea what it wanted, and its touch was incredibly ticklish. Soon, Arudo found himself on top of a mountain, looking down at his birth village. A small, picturesque place nestled in nature. The slime looked ahead too. It indicated something, but Arudo stated he wouldn't return. He had a person to save. A path to follow, but he was still too weak. Perhaps it was all futile. Roughly a mile away lay one of the finest underground cities. That was his goal. To conquer its upper floors and raise his level as much as he possibly could. Arudo then remembered his beloved, focusing on how he could finally level up. He pictured the city, the obstacles, and all the battles that were waiting for him. Because as you and I are about to find out, he only has 7 years left. All right, stick with me, because our story starts with a tough goodbye. Standing over his things, Arudo mentally apologizes to his parents for leaving. He wrote a letter explaining there are things he just has to do. Arudo feels like this is the end, but he knows he has to fix everything. He's profoundly grateful for their boundless love, glad to have grown up with them. Thinking of his mother and father, he remembers the 8 happy years they had. With tears in his eyes, he realizes it's finally time to leave. But as he leaves his parents' house, a little slime starts to follow him. Arudo isn't sure he can trust it. He thinks it's dangerous and tells it to stay back. After all, how could it possibly defend itself from monsters out here? And then you see this, the slime starts clapping with its little limbs. Seeing how determined it is, Arudo agrees, and the two of them journey on together. A whole month later, after taking down a huge wolf, Arudo decides it's lunchtime. But the slime next to him is dragging something over. Arudo sees fresh wounds. It's another wolf it took down. He thanks his new partner, who then drops a magic stone right into Arudo's bag. With these stones, he won't have to worry about money. The slime then zips off, like it's trying to shout something at him. Arudo follows its lead. Did the slime really just find them shelter for the night? A moment later, Arudo peeks out from behind a mountain, the slime right there with him. It's a cave, a perfect spot to rest up before they continue their journey. Their next stop is Kintigris tomorrow, roasting meat, Arudo thinks to himself. The low-level monsters here make finding food almost too easy, even without a fight. It's a feeling he's getting used to. His body is finally starting to resemble his form from his past life, growing at an unparalleled speed. Just then, a system window appears, showing his level is now 32. And all his stats are constantly rising. He figures he could raise his level way faster inside a dungeon and get even stronger. He sits on a stone. Holding another rock in his hand, he starts eating a kebab. He notices the slime has climbed up onto him and is enjoying a kebab of its own. Arudo then offers it some rice, wondering if this thing will eat literally anything. He smiles, happy to be out here collecting magic stones with his new companion. He's so glad he met it. He then asks if the slime is actually a predator. A revelation that, honestly, comes as a bit of a shock to him. But pay attention here, someone is watching them from behind the mountain. Sensing the gaze, Arudo whips a barbecue skewer right at the hiding spot. He registers a swift dodge. This thing is way too fast to track. And in the next instant, a rapid attack strikes him hard. He knows he wouldn't survive a full barrage of blows at that speed. This isn't a person. It's a demon, he thinks, a thief, probably here for his magic stones. Then the figure drops down right in front of Arudo. It's a she. And she snatches his kebab, revealing herself as a girl with animal features. Arudo stares at her, completely and utterly taken aback. He watches the girl devour his barbecue and asks if she's a monster. She replies that she's a magica and a traveler and asks who he is. And you and I know what he's thinking. She doesn't seem like a monster at all. And just like that, a new travel companion appears. Trust me, you'll want to remember her. Very cute ears. She casually reveals she's from the squirrel tribe, asking if he's heard of them. But before he can answer, she just cuts him off, saying she doesn't really care anyway. Arudo just gives her this confused look, but then, a moment later, she vanishes, reappearing right beside his campfire, where his food was still cooking. Without missing a beat, she asks if he minds if she finishes it. Arudo is stunned by her sudden movement, wondering where she even came from. He didn't even hear a please. Meanwhile, the slime tries to snatch the food from her hands. The next morning, Arudo wakes up to find the girl just following him around. With the slime on her shoulder, Arudo asks why. She just retorts that he's still a kid. And since she needs to go to the city anyway, she figured she would just follow him. Arudo fires back, asking Magica if she isn't a child herself. The girl simply replied that even if someone looks like an adult, there's still a child inside. Arudo insists he is. He's an adult and he was planning on going alone. Then, an idea hits him. Turning to Magica, he suggests they just go now to make the time pass by faster. Arudo flashes a smile at the girl and she agrees. Moments later, he points ahead, announcing that he's finally spotted it. Kittigris, the city's vast landscape appears. Before them, all of it framed by a colossal wall, they approach and pass through the gate. A girl immediately runs up to them, promising low taxes and a perfectly clean record, inviting them to enter. For centuries, Kittigris has always meant chaos and danger. A place with a huge variety of races, and this city, this is where things get interesting. It's all because of the massive dungeon at its center, drawing people from all over. As Arudo and Magica enter, she's visibly terrified. Arudo immediately asks what's wrong. She admits this is her first time ever seeing such a massive crowd of people. Turning to Magica, Arudo explains that he's actually from a small village himself. She replies that she grew up living on the streets. Arudo confesses he was nervous too. On his first visit, surprised, Magica points out he said something different earlier. He previously claimed he had never been here before. Arudo clarifies that he came with his parents when he was about 10 years old, remembering how he thought. The entire city felt alive. Almost nothing has changed since then, Arudo realizes. He looks around, contemplating, wondering if anything major is about to unfold. He knows he has to be cautious. That's when Magica asks him where he's headed. Arudo tells her he needs to visit the Adventurers Guild to get some cash, enough to pay for their stay. Then he asks if Magica is going to come with him. She readily agrees. Upon arriving at the guild, Arudo declares his intentions. He's here to exchange magic stones. The man at the counter, however, turns to him and says that Arudo is in the wrong place. Arudo looks totally shocked. The man then tells him to get lost, claiming the guild is no place for kids. Now, I know what you're thinking. Arudo just empties his bag onto the counter, revealing a massive pile of magic stones. The guy who just tried to dismiss him stares in total disbelief, asking where on earth. Arudo got so many, he simply replies that he got all of them from hunting. This girl standing next to me, he states, the one I defeated doesn't know how to sell magic stones. Arudo finishes, gesturing towards a confused Magica. The man looks at Magica, surprised. She starts to protest, trying to say she had nothing to do with it, but Arudo cuts her off. Be silent. You and I both know that smile means trouble. And realized the whole haul was worth around 1990 units. The man then breaks it down for Arudo, 2 gold, 29 silver, and 85 copper. But for all that cash, Arudo feels completely drained. Trust me, we're about to see why. Was it just because he's a kid, or a side effect of his insane growth rate? As Arudo puts the money away, he asks if he can register as a finder. The clerk questions why a little kid would want to register as an adventurer. Arudo points right at Magica, saying she's an adult and that he personally needs to sign up for a huge mission he's planning. Magica starts to say something, but Arudo slaps a hand over her mouth, telling the guy to hurry. They're running out of time. Once they're outside, Magica turns to him. She tells him to take her along and make use of her skills. Arudo, needing a little clarification, quickly apologizes. He explains that being his age, it's tough to explain everything perfectly, so he just asked for her help. He then asks Magica if it's not a better idea to spend time hunting magic stones. She fires back that doing that won't improve his reputation at all. Magica, walking a step behind, then hears him completely dismiss that idea. No one gets stronger by just raising their reputation, he says, and Magica looks at Arudo, totally surprised by his words. But he just walks on ahead, saying that since they have money now, they should find a hotel. He offers to buy her dinner to thank her, but also says they can part ways there if she has something else to do. Magica agrees to go, but on one condition. Either he pays her or they spend some time together in his room, and hearing this, Arudo just tells her to follow him. Man, what a woman, Arudo thinks to himself. As evening sets in, Arudo genuinely says he's glad Magica decided to join him. He admits he fully expected her to say no. Sitting inside their room, they finally talk. Arudo explains that his messy appearance closes off a lot of chances for him, including being able to eat the amazing food at this hotel. He thinks Magica will really enjoy it, too. But as Arudo explains all this, Magica just stares at him intently, and Arudo has no idea what's going on. She brushes off his unspoken question, just declaring she's going to take a bath. Arudo sees her start to take off her cloak and immediately panics. He shouts at her to get undressed in the bathroom, not in front of him. At that same moment, the little slime happily flops onto the bed, clearly wiped out. Magica, standing in the bathroom, gets ready to put on her clothes, noting this is a whole new experience for her. Stepping out, she decides she'll just go straight to bed and enjoy a massive breakfast tomorrow. Then she sees Arudo. Now this is the moment everything clicks. The sheer amount of mana radiating from him is insane. That kind of power is impossible for any ordinary person to have. Watching him sit on the bed with his eyes closed, Magica starts to wonder who Arudo really is. She's been traveling the world for years, searching for someone very specific. And then a few days ago, this kid just conveniently appears in her life. She can see a strength in him far beyond his years and skills she's never seen before. She knows she needs to get closer to figure out his secret. Magica replays everything Arudo said, shocked by how mature he acts and speaks. So what do we make of this? Could he be the one she's been looking for, the one fated to change this entire world, the star prediction? The prophecy said the hero would be a girl, which should have made it impossible for Arudo to be the one. Yet, looking at him, Magica felt this undeniable premonition. Trust me, she knew Arudo was the key to unlocking a whole new world, a feeling she had definitely experienced before. The next moment, Arudo is out cold, completely exhausted from all his training. Magica watches him, noticing how he collapses like a dead man the second his mana reserves are empty. Why does he push himself so hard? She wonders, a bad feeling starting to stir inside her. It was almost like something or someone was chasing him. Meanwhile, someone watched them from the rooftop. A moment later, an intruder tries to climb in through their open window. Magica is surprised, wondering if this is actually a thief. His presence was so faint, suggesting he was an extremely low level. She could have easily sent him packing, but she wanted to see how Arudo would handle this. So Magica pretends to be asleep. As the thief creeps into the room, he reaches for Arudo. But Arudo stirs. grabs something, then wakes up and calmly greets the intruder right in front of him. The thief responds by pulling a knife, lunging to attack Arudo. Magica instantly shot up from her bed, screaming for Arudo to watch out. The knife stops inches from his throat. As the thief warns, "Don't move," the thief then says if Arudo behaves, he won't get hurt. But both Magica and Arudo immediately want to know what this guy is after. "Are you really here for money? How did you even know about this place?" Arudo demands, leaving the thief totally speechless. Done talking, Arudo attacks. He unleashes an air cannon, slamming into the intruder. The force of the blast sends the guy flying right back out the window. Magica looks over at Arudo and asks if he's all right. He just replies that everything is perfectly fine. Watching where the enemy fell, Magica realizes Arudo used insanely complex magic with a single, simple move. You and I both know that kind of power could easily kill someone. Magica wonders how much Arudo must have trained to get this strong at his age. She turns to ask him, but he's already fast asleep again. Magica just thinks this boy is something else. He was destined for fame in more ways than one. She notices the thief's knife lying right next to Arudo's bed. Later on, after waking up, the two go down to the tavern to eat. As a ton of food is brought to their table, Arudo asks Magica if she's enjoying the meal. With her mouth completely full, Magica declares it's the most delicious food she has ever tasted in her life. Her words are a little muffled. Arudo just tells her to eat and not to rush. Soon after, they thank the staff for the amazing meal. They leave the hotel, and Magica thanks Arudo, saying she is absolutely full. Arudo just teases her, promising that by morning she would have eaten enough for 10 people. Magica then asks him what their next move is. Arudo explains that while he had initially planned on visiting the dungeon, that surprise visitor from last night changed his mind. And this, my friends, is where our story takes a turn. He's holding the knife, wondering where to start searching. Arudo heads straight for the guild, greeting the people at the entrance. And once again, two men are watching him. One of them, the merchant who bought Arudo's magic stones, recognizes him, asking if he's the young man from yesterday. Arudo, not missing a beat, asks, "Are you appraising magic stones today?" He explained he was in a meeting with the boss and told Arudo to come back later. But Arudo said this was perfect timing. He needed to talk to the higher-ups too. Then he drops a bombshell. "Could it be," he asks, "that you have a thief in the guild?" The boss, staring at Arudo, demands he explain exactly what he means. Arudo lays it all out. A suspicious guy broke into their room the other night. They scared him off, but the intruder knew exactly what he was looking for. He was going for the money they got from selling that magic stone to the guild. The thief didn't even search the room. He knew precisely where the cash was hidden. Think about it, how else would he know to check inside Arudo's music bag? The logic is simple, Arudo concludes. The robber had to be someone from the guild. Someone who was there when they made the deal. He looks straight at his superiors. The boss has to agree. Arudo's deduction makes perfect sense. Turning to Lion, who's sitting right across from him, the boss puts him on the spot. He says Lion was responsible for security and asks if he saw anyone sketchy. Lion just shrugs. "I wouldn't know," he mumbles, "maybe, maybe not." The boss tells him to speak clearly, while Arudo just watches the whole thing unfold. Finally, Lion states clearly he saw no one suspicious at all. But Arudo isn't done. Pointing to Mika, he reveals the best part: she branded the criminal. Magica looks totally shocked. She had no idea Arudo was going to say that. Now if the boss sees a man with a magic sign on his hand, he's to be detained. And in that exact moment, Lion subtly pulls down his sleeves to hide his hands. Arudo then hands a dagger to the boss, saying the thief dropped it on his way out. "It's a nice weapon," he says, "but it should go to the guards as evidence." The boss agrees, saying it'll help them track down the culprit as he inspects it. But suddenly, Lion interrupts, asking if Arudo can just keep the dagger. He starts talking about rules, how victors get to keep the spoils of battle. And what a shame it would be to just hand over such a fine weapon. The boss starts to agree, but before he can even finish, Lion is already up. He shoves the dagger into Arudo's hand, telling him how great it is and to guard it well. He even speculates that it must be incredibly valuable, but Arudo just pushes him away. You and I can see it on his face. He is not happy with this development at all. The boss just calls for calm and says they'll tighten security from now on. Lion swears he understands completely and tells the boss to leave it all to him. After that, Arudo and Magica finally take their leave. Magica is confused. That guy was the thief, wasn't he? Was it smart to let him go? Arudo just says the warning has been delivered. The rest, he adds, is not our problem. She then asks, so your real goal was just to get a weapon out of this? Arudo looks at her, a little surprised. Did she see right through his whole plan? With that task complete, their real adventure is about to begin. Standing at the dungeon entrance, Arudo stares up at the massive structure. Magica follows his gaze, admitting she can't even see the top from down here. This, Arudo explains, is a legendary labyrinth, one of the world's greatest dungeons. Its size, its origin, who built it, all of it remains a complete mystery. They step through the portal and are instantly teleported to a new location. And that's where we leave them, as Arudo explains the dungeon's lower levels. It was supposed to be safe, mainly a training ground for rookie adventurers. As Arudo was explaining this, a deep roar caught his attention. Suddenly, two guys nearby started warning everyone that a monster had broken loose from a higher floor. They yelled that his magic was useless and he needed to run. Just then, a gigantic horned rat came charging straight for Arudo. Others saw a mere kid and frantically screamed for him to get out of there faster. But Arudo, facing the beast, just calmly uttered the word grave. Instantly, the monster plummeted into a massive gaping hole that tore open the floor. Arudo realized he might have overdone it. He'd used way too much power and could have hurt the people around him. Magica looked down, stunned along with everyone else who couldn't figure out how such a huge hole just appeared out of nowhere. While some thought it was an earthquake, there were no tremors at all, so Arudo quickly claimed the floor must have just collapsed from bad luck. The chasm was so deep that he yelled for everyone to be careful as they scattered. Magica asked him, "Why didn't you just tell them you did that?" Arudo replied that they never would have believed him anyway. Better to just head to the upper floors. Starting from the 26th floor, the dungeon ramped up to an intermediate difficulty where the true maze was said to begin. And a moment later, Magica was facing a bear. Arudo watched, impressed, as she took it down with a single clean blow. Sitting next to the creature, Magica just brushed off his compliment, pointing out that Arudo had been fighting too. Drawing the blade from his belt, Arudo figured it was time to give it a test run. The system immediately flagged a skill increase, dexterity plus 110. Arudo was absolutely thrilled by the boost. He realized this dagger was way more powerful than he ever imagined. He thought to himself that a proper skill board would show his progress visually instead of him just feeling it. And this knife. It would be priceless when picking out new gear, but even with a weapon this strong, Arudo knew he couldn't get complacent. He had to get stronger by taking on the bears up ahead. The monsters on this mid-level weren't a huge challenge, so he decided to seek out even tougher opponents. Before they left, Arudo declared that the upper level was their next target. And after finishing off their current enemies, they were on their way. Magica just stared at the bears Arudo had slain. Arudo then stepped into a cave, instantly getting thrown into another fight. Demons surged right at him, but Arudo was confident he could handle them. And soon, the demons were crushed under the very stones that Arudo had turned into weapons. Watching them fall, he breathed a sigh of relief. "We're on the 50th floor," Arudo announced to Magica. "Okay, this is where the upper level begins, a high-risk zone where only a handful of elite adventurers even stand a chance. The strength of the monsters here will just keep increasing with every floor. So we need to level up fast while we have the chance." He stared forward as he spoke. Magica just watched him, then turned and asked why he fought monsters in such a normal way. Arudo was completely caught off guard. Was there an abnormal way to fight? If she knew a better method, he begged her to teach him, his eyes practically sparkling. Magica quickly clarified that's not what she meant. What she meant was that the monsters Arudo had just defeated were strong enough to give even high-level adventurers trouble. You and I can both see it. Magica isn't happy with how easily Arudo just wiped them all out. She couldn't understand how he had that kind of strength, and you can see it on her face. She demanded answers, but Arudo just shot back with a question of his own. He asked if his fighting style seemed weird to her. Magica had to agree. From an outsider's view, it was strange, and she wondered why he was so shocked. In that moment, Arudo knew Magica was the second person to ever see him. Truly see him for what he was. Before her, only Hannah had seen past the surface. He remembered his past life. Even at level 99, he fought every monster alone. Other high-level adventurers had whole teams, but no one ever gave him a second thought, all because of his low life stat. That was the unforgiving law of his old world. But now, Arudo started to wonder, maybe Hannah wasn't the only one who could break those rules. Just then, Magica's curiosity took over. She straight up asked if Arudo was even fully human. With a smile, he assured her he was. 100% human, he said. Though he thought to himself, that was a pretty hard pill to swallow, considering he'd already died and been reborn. Magica just watched him, repeating his words, amused by that grin on his face. She decided he was just a weirdo, a comment that definitely got under Arudo's skin. A moment later, the system dings, level up, time to head deeper into the cave. Arudo declared he could now take on monsters from the 50th floor. He suggested they go up a bit. Now here's where it gets interesting. Arudo's memories are screaming danger. And right on cue, a small ogre stomps into view. Arudo remembered how hard it was to kill this thing in his past life. Now he wondered just how fast he could put it down. As they faced off, Magica noted the ogre's bloodlust, pure rage, ready to kill. She could tell its power was way beyond anything they'd fought before. Turning to Arudo, she offered to attack from behind, but Arudo refused. He was going to fight this thing solo. Hearing this, Magica panicked. She thought he was losing his mind. One wrong move, and he was dead. Arudo told her he understood the risk, but this was a test of his true power. He drew his knife and stepped up to face the ogre. In the next instant, Arudo attacked, his sword clashing against the ogre's hide. The monster's skin was like hitting solid metal, but still, he drew blood. The ogre, now furious, swung back, slashing Arudo's cheek. He dodged the next hit, realizing his attacks were working. If he just kept dodging and attacking, hitting that same spot over and over again, he could win this. But as he landed another strike, Magica couldn't believe her eyes. She just couldn't wrap her head around Arudo defeating this thing so easily. Arudo, wiping himself off, thought that he barely even broke a sweat. Maybe this was the current limit of his true strength after all. The slime then spat out a massive diamond right at his feet. As Arudo picked it up, he wondered why a monster of this level would drop such a rare gem. Then a sudden shift in the air, something was coming. At that moment, Arudo turned to Magica, asking if she heard that. The girl behind him had no idea what he was talking about, and trust me, that's never a good sign. Sensing the danger, Arudo turns to Magica, telling her, "We need to get out of here now." But she says escape is impossible, just moving an inch would be suicide. One wrong move would be their last. And that's when a colossal ogre erupts right from the depths of the cave, its massive hand lunging straight for them. This wasn't just any ogre. It was wrapped in magical ivy. A low-level parasitic monster known for one thing, draining the life force from higher-tier creatures it infects. Arudo stares it down, confused by its presence on the 70th floor. These things don't show up for another 10 floors. He wasn't even sure he could take on a smaller one. And yet this massive beast stood right in front of him. He shoves the slime back into his bag, glancing at Magica, urging her that this was their only chance to escape. Magica, however, she flat out refused. She saw the monster's incredible power, but she believed everything had a breaking point. Her gloves glow. She was ready for a fight. She had trained relentlessly to be a worthy partner for the hero she was seeking, and trust me, she thought she was unrivaled. But then, upon meeting Arudo, she realized all her past efforts simply weren't enough. The girl charges the ogre, dead set on proving herself, and unleashes her first attack. After the strike lands, Magica sees it did almost nothing. The ogre just got angrier and immediately swung back at her. Dodging its heavy blows, Magica realized one thing: she was way faster. A single hit wasn't going to cut it. She needed to land several attacks all at once. But despite her lightning-fast strikes, the ogre tags her with ivy, then grabs her, its grip crushing her body with agonizing pressure. Arudo unleashes an air blade, slicing her free as the ivy vines fall away. He quickly asks Magica if she's all right. She thanks him, but you can see the shame on her face, being saved by a kid. Magica glares back at the ogre, her power flaring to life once more. She knew it was time to stop holding back. Invoking light from an untouched shadow, she calls upon the brilliance of 1,000 stars. Now watch closely. Unleashing the artifact Star Rain, Magica attacks the ogre with every ounce of her power. She poured all her mana into that one secret spell. Surely the ogre was finished. But as the dust settles, she sees the ogre standing there, completely unharmed and looking utterly baffled. The beast then raises its leg high above Magica's head. She just stares up, realizing that even after giving it everything she had, it wasn't nearly enough. The ogre's foot comes crashing down towards the ground. But Arudo moves in a flash, getting to Magica. As she looks up, he scoops her into his arms, telling her to leave the rest to him as he sprints away. He then turns to the slime, ordering it to look after Magica. The slime agrees, and Arudo heads back into the fight. Standing before the giant, Arudo knew there was no choice. He had to win. He rushes forward, knowing he isn't as fast as Magica, but as he's weighing his options, the ogre's attack slams into him, shattering his train of thought. Witnessing this, Magica lets out a desperate scream. Gasping for air, Arudo instinctively blocks the ogre's follow-up, looking for an opening to strike back. He analyzes his enemy, realizing that even though it's magical, the ivy is still just a plant, vulnerable to fire. But he knew just burning the vines would be pointless. They'd just grow back instantly. Arudo needed a strike that would actually damage the ogre itself. Gripping his sword, Arudo launches another attack. You and I both know that piercing that thick hide directly is impossible. He had to aim for something else. Model with its weak spot exposed, Arudo unleashed a perfectly aimed fireball. It slammed right into the ogre's back. Arudo fell, watching the results of his attack. But then his vision went dark, and he collapsed onto the ground. Magica could only stare in shock, amazed as she realized that Arudo had actually won. He was just a kid, and he'd defeated this beast. You and I just witnessed a kid take down a monster way out of his leg. Opening their eyes, both Arudo and Magica see a slime just hovering above them. They were lying on the ground, the sun shining, wondering how they even got there. Arudo asks the slime, Rue, if she was the one who saved them, and she confirms it. He hugs the slime tightly, thanking her and calling her his most reliable partner in the entire world. Turning to Magica, Arudo points out how dangerous it would have been if they'd stayed unconscious back there. It was pure luck they woke up where they did. Magica stays quiet, then just apologizes. She says she's heading back to the hotel first. Arudo agrees, saying he'll also take a breather before heading back. He just stares at Magica, completely blown away. Did Magica just use an artifact? Artifacts were holy tools, created by God himself, so rare you could count them on one hand in their world. The artifact Magica had was called Star Rain. Arudo realized something. Now listen closely, because this is where the entire story gets turned on its head. The owner of this specific artifact is fated to die in 7 years. It's night. Arudo, sitting in the tub, processes the fact that Magica had this artifact's magic all along. The artifact, known as the Hand of Justice, chooses a wielder with 2 very specific traits. She's classified by the Vatican as criminal element number 5, Macchia exter terra. She and 5 others were branded enemies of God. That hasn't happened yet, but a kill order will be issued for them in the future. Arudo pulls up the skill scoreboard, a system interface popping up right in front of him. Looking it over, Arudo figures that Magica's life indicator is probably a 4. In that dungeon, he'd felt her magical power spike past his own, along with that impenetrable barrier. She had to be way, way stronger than him. A completely different league, a clear gap in their power levels. But then he thought, even with all that power, she gets crushed by the Vatican in 7 years. As he sinks beneath the water, Arudo starts to understand just how weak he is compared to her. So what can he even do? That's the question we're all asking. Just then, a slime pops up in front of Arudo, startling him out of the water. He asks what she's doing here already, wondering if she wanted a bath too. The slime answers in its own unique language, so Arudo gets out and starts washing her. While scrubbing Rue, he remarks, "We only got out of there thanks to you." He promises to scrub her until she's sparkling clean, a promise that absolutely delights the little slime. As Arudo keeps scrubbing, she replies again. Arudo isn't sure if he should stop. It seems like the slime's heels are ticklish. A weird thought, since when did slimes even have heels? A second later, the slime is so sparkly clean it's almost blinding him. Arudo asks if she always gets this shiny after a good wash. Smiling, Arudo looks at Rue and asks if she's happy, and she jumps for joy. And whispered something to Arudo before her body blurred, looking like a puddle. Seeing this, Arudo wondered if she needed a bath and gently pushed the slime back. After leaving the pool and taking the slime to his room, Arudo realized he must have startled it. And that's when Magica suddenly appeared. Rising from the sofa, she greeted him with a simple, "Hello, Arudo." Magica clearly had something on her mind, so Arudo suggested they talk outside. Now pay attention, because as Arudo handed her a drink, he realized she'd been silent. They hadn't spoken since returning to the hotel. Something was definitely wrong. Handing her the drink, Arudo remarked, "The sunset from here is beautiful." They both watched the sky as Magica quietly agreed, clutching her mug. She sat in heavy silence before finally turning to him. "I always thought that I would never lose to another magician." Her confidence was shattered. "Maybe my training made me arrogant," she admitted, "but now I see the truth. I was weak. From now on, I want to dedicate myself to training alone." Magica declared, looking straight at Arudo. She explained that living with him would only highlight her weakness, so she needed her own separate room. Looking at Arudo, she added, "If I hadn't come with you, I never would have realized this." Then she made a vow, "Next time, I absolutely will not lose to you." Turning to him one last time, she issued a challenge. "When we meet again, I will be stronger than you." At her words, Arudo's hands trembled. And then he started laughing, confusing Magica completely. Why was this so funny? Arudo explained that she was saying some pretty strange things. He apologized, realizing it wasn't about talent. No, the most important thing was the effort. Clinking their mugs together. Arudo declared he wouldn't lose either, and that they should meet again once they were both 100 times stronger. "You and I know this is the start of something epic," but they had no idea what was coming. A power existed in this world that could wipe them out in an instant. Back in the hotel, Arudo started packing his things, checking his bag one last time. He confirmed everything was there and glanced at the bed where Magica slept. He closed his eyes, then left the room, determined to keep his promise. From that moment on, time blurred as he threw himself completely into training. First, Arudo decided he needed to level up his crafting skill. Following his system's advice, he arrived at a massive forest. This was the perfect training spot. It was overflowing with collectible crystals and rich in mana, perfect for crafting. And so the grind began. He started by generating mana and shattering stones into tiny pieces. Soon enough, he got a skill increase and gained better control over his magic. Not long after, his crafting skill hit level 20, unlocking the blacksmith class. Just as Arudo hoped. Crafting gave him offensive skills like Grave Reaper, but also the ability to create items using materials from the dungeon itself. Fire, magic, you name it, he'd never have to worry about getting kicked out of a forge again. Holding up a newly crafted sword, Arudo realized that by training with it, he'd suddenly unlocked another brand new skill. But moments later, fighting a monster in a cave, he got a harsh reality check. He was still way too weak for the next floor, and trust me, the system notice he got next changes everything. Just then, he masters the art of the blade, surpassing level 40, and a new skill appears. And just like that, you and I get to see a brand new skill unlock, two-handed style. Arudo immediately draws his sword and unleashes it on his enemy, leveling up instantly. He figures it out by using Grave Reaper, Typhoon, and his other attacks. The Grave Reaper skill itself levels up. So he combines it with magic, gaining control over the ground fissures and adding some serious lethal power to his arsenal. Throughout it all, Arudo's level has been skyrocketing right alongside his skills. The system dings. He's now level 40, and all his skills have jumped by 30 points. His crafting and manipulation abilities are now available. Intrigued, Arudo opens the system window. It says manipulation absorbs a bit of mana to move an object however he wants. So Arudo points his hand at a nearby stone and gives it a try. The stone just kinda shifts to the side, nothing too crazy compared to Grave Reaper. But Arudo knows this skill will come in handy. So he keeps training and the days quickly turn into weeks. Before he knows it, winter has arrived. While walking through the city, Arudo overhears the local gossip. And he hears something pretty amusing. Two men are talking about a recent rumor. Pay attention here, this is where things get interesting. One asks, have you heard about the weirdo who single-handedly defeated 1,000 monsters on the upper floors? The other guy says he has, adding that the weirdo is just a kid, and for some reason, he carries a low-level slime with him everywhere. As Arudo passes, he realizes they're talking about him. And when they see him, their jaws hit the floor. After all, high-level adventurers are supposed to hunt the upper floors in parties. Arudo just looks at them, finally understanding that he's on people's radar now. Before, no matter what he did, his low profile meant nobody ever paid him any attention. But maybe something has finally changed for him. Still, he thinks, glancing back at the strangers, he's not a fan of being called a weirdo. Later at the hotel, Arudo tells the owner he's heading back to the dungeon tomorrow. He says he wants to check out of his room for 2 or 3 days. The owner tells him to be careful, then casually asks if the girl who was with him before is all right. Hearing this, Arudo stops. He realizes he hasn't seen Magica since they got separate rooms. The owner then mentions the girl hasn't come back for several days, and she's getting a little worried about her. Hearing this, Arudo clutches his jacket. His first thought is, it's Magica, she's strong, she'll be fine. But a nagging feeling of dread starts to creep in. Just then, a knight on horseback gallops into the city. Everyone who sees him whispers that the Vatican has summoned one of its knights, a seriously impressive sight. Arudo hears this and bolts. The owner calls out to him, asking what's wrong, but Arudo doesn't answer. His mind is racing, trying to figure out how the future he remembers is now so different. Then it hits him, of course, his changes have affected Magica's fate too. Why didn't he think of that before? Arudo's thoughts begin to spiral. Has the Vatican already given the order to eliminate Magica? What if the future where she's executed is about to happen right now, and you and I are left wondering, is he too late? As he sprinted past a carriage, a figure inside watched Arudo closely. From the window they mused, what a clever boy he is. as he neared the dungeon. Arudo was just desperately hoping Magica was safe, activating his present sense. Now you'd think someone that powerful would be easy to find, right? He prayed he wasn't wrong, then, seeing a familiar figure, he called out. Magica turned around, a flicker of recognition in her eyes. It's been a while. She remarked, "How are you doing?" Seeing her strength, he realized. His worries were probably for nothing. Catching his breath, Arudo told her. He was fine, but Magica instantly asked why he was breathing so hard. He couldn't just admit he was terrified something had happened to her. So he played it cool, said he was just out for a run and saw her. He even pretended to keep jogging before stopping to say one more thing. Removing his scarf, he mentioned how chilly it was, especially for her outfit. He wrapped it around her, urging her to wear it so she wouldn't catch a cold. Magica gratefully accepted, and just then, something in the sky caught their eye. They both looked up, completely baffled by the sight above them. Arudo called it a black mass, and Magica admitted it made her feel sick. The ominous thing began to expand, and trust me, you can feel that oppressive aura. Arudo instantly knew the danger. He yelled for Magica to get the citizens out. A moment later, the black sphere started to crack. Arudo couldn't believe it. It was a demon standing right before them, a creature that commands powerful monsters. He questioned why something like that would ever appear in the heart of the city. The demon wasted no time, immediately starting to level nearby houses. This was a monster that wouldn't stop until everything around it was just ash. Nothing could deter it, and Arudo, he was completely paralyzed, frozen in place. Just like during the fire, and this is where the crazy rules of this world kick in. The overwhelming difference in their power levels rendered his body completely numb. Despite that, Arudo strained with everything he had, desperate to just move. If he stayed frozen, the entire city was going to be annihilated. But then Magica gently placed the scarf he'd given her back around his neck. "Everything will be fine," she declared. "Arudo, you can rely on me." And with that, she launched herself into action, charging straight at the demon. Arudo watched, absolutely floored by Magica's incredible strength. She was so much stronger. She landed a heavy blow, but the demon's wound regenerated in an instant. Magica knew right away it would take a single, massive strike to end this. She readied her artifact, Star Rain, but the demon moved with blinding speed. It was behind her in a flash. Magica spun around, shocked by its swiftness. She barely dodged the follow-up attack. The demon left absolutely no openings. No time to use her artifact. The next thing Arudo saw was shattered pavement. His thoughts were spinning, totally consumed with worry for Magica. He didn't get it. Why was he just a spectator? Were his past 8 years utterly meaningless? He hadn't been reborn just to watch another catastrophe, a repeat of his last life. His sheer desire ignited mana in his hands, and you and I both know this changes everything. Staring at the shimmering energy, Arudo wondered if he could actually manifest magic. Even while paralyzed, if he could only succeed, he looked toward Magica. "All right, let's jump in." The demon attacks as she struggles against the insane winds. One direct hit and it's all over. She knew this thing was no joke. Regenerating after every single strike, she had to find the perfect opening to use her artifact. Magica lunges at the demon again, only to get thrown back violently. Yeah, you can see it on her face. This is completely hopeless. Even if Arudo is gathering mana, there's no way he can intervene in time. The demon conjures a huge fireball, spinning it right over its head. Magica looks up, knowing her death is just seconds away. She closes her eyes, bracing for the end. But in that exact moment, Arudo uses his manipulation skill. Magica opens her eyes to see the demon's fire attack being hurled far into the distance. Arudo just stares at the attack he redirected in total disbelief. Magica wonders if he actually managed to alter its trajectory. Just then, the demon loses its balance. Magica looks at Arudo, realizing he's just a kid. As the demon falls right on top of her, Magica finally sees her chance to strike. Arudo screams at her, "Use Star Rain." She attacks the demon, wounding it until it finally disappears. Seeing it gone, both Arudo and Magica believe they've actually succeeded. Magica rushes over to Arudo, asking if he's all right. Helping him up. Arudo explains he's just weak from leveling up and that a short rest should restore his strength. But when she puts Arudo on her back, he's totally confused by what Magica is doing. She insists on carrying him to the hotel. Arudo tries to refuse, but she counters that he has already done so much for her, pleading to let her do at least this one thing. Later, as they escape, Magica says she's never seen a technique like his. Now, pay attention to this next part. Realizing she means his manipulation skill. Arudo explains that he only acquired it after their last encounter. He demonstrates by manipulating his own scarf, making it appear instantly on Magica. Magica, stunned, asks if he just did that. Arudo replies that he can move objects at will just by using mana. So he can change the direction of wind attacks, block and redirect defenses, and with enough training, he could control opponents like puppets. Magica declares it's an unbelievable skill. Arudo, however, explains he can't move while using it and never would have defeated the demon by himself. He then gives Magica full credit for saving the city, looking right at her, blushing. Magica says she thinks they both did. Arudo just chuckles. Then a thought hits Arudo as he remembers the demon's defeat. If incidents like this keep happening, the whole city will be destroyed. He realizes he doesn't remember this event from his past life, which means someone must have defeated it. Who could be strong enough to beat a demon like that? Arudo wonders. And just then he senses an aura. Don't blink, because the real villain is about to show up. Magica turns to him, saying they haven't reached their destination yet, but Arudo insists that they need to stop now. Suddenly, Magica freezes, stopping mid-stride on the roof. Arudo looks down and recognizes him instantly. That figure. The black clothes, the overwhelming mana pouring off him, as if he wasn't from this world. This was the magician who killed Hannah in his previous life. The man standing right before them is Gamagan, just standing there looking away. Magica looks over at Arudo, noticing he looks terrified, a look she has never seen before. She asks who the man is. Arudo replies that it's Gamagan Salwe, one of the 12 commanders of Euphonia. Trust me, this is where it all goes wrong. Magica knew that name, Gamagan. After all, he was known as the strongest magician in the world. And as you and I can see, Arudo is already gathering his magic, making Magica ask what in the world he's doing. In a fit of pure rage, Arudo snaps that it's none of her business. He has to kill this man. Magica stops him, asking if he seriously intends to fight in his current state. Arudo was already looking daggers at her, but she grabs his hand, telling him he's too weak after leveling up. He'd be no match for a monster like that. Arudo just tells her to let go. But Magica pleads with him to calm down and just sit. Doesn't he get it? He can't win right now, she shouts, trying desperately to reason with him. Arudo finally calms down, realizing Magica is right. In his current state, there's no way he could beat that magician. Leaning on the rooftop, a wave of depression hits him. Meanwhile, the magician himself is standing there, observing his little invention. A man beside him dares to ask what it means that he summoned the demon. Is he, Mr. Gamigan, actually responsible? Gamigan just says, yes, it's true. He acquired a rare summoning artifact and simply wanted to test it, but the thing was useless. Turns out the artifact could only summon a low-ranking ogre. Crushing it in his hands, he says, unfortunately, before I even had a chance to step in, somebody else had already defeated it without any trouble. The man behind him points out that even a weak demon has enough power to destroy a small nation. The 12 commanders of Euphonia only obey royal orders, their duty. To protect the country, an act like this is simply unacceptable. At this moment, Gamigan looks at the man, lifts him up, and binds his neck with magic. Now pay attention here, because this is the moment we see his true colors. Gamigan asks why he felt the need to share his opinion on the matter. Surely he hadn't considered that it might be best to just keep his mouth shut. Gasping for air, the man apologizes over and over. Then he's dropped to the ground. The magician orders his carriage, declaring he's heading back to the capital to continue his research. But just then, a subordinate pipes up, asking Gamagan if he still hasn't found the one he was looking for, and if he really plans to just leave things like this. Gamagan simply replies that the person isn't in the city. As he steps into his carriage, he muses that upon seeing Arudo and Magica, he expected her to unleash some kind of terror. He never thought he'd find one of the Vatican's most wanted enemies in a place like this. Arudo and Magica are frozen in horror by the man's piercing gaze. The magician, meanwhile, speculates that Magica must have been the one who beat the demon. He thinks about harvesting all the wonderful ingredients from her body. Gamigan considers what he could do with the girl right then, but stops himself, realizing there are no official orders for her destruction yet. Going against the king would jeopardize the funding for his experiments, and that's a risk he just can't take. So he tells his coachman to get a move on, confident they'll meet the girl again soon enough. As the magician's carriage pulls away, Arudo and Magica watch it disappear, realizing just how deeply that man's stare had shaken them. Magica voices her fear that he would absolutely kill them. She remembers he's a commander from Euphonia. And looking at Arudo, asks how he's holding up. Arudo just gazes at the floor, thinking about his own foolishness. Thinking he could fight such a monstrous magician, he made a quiet vow. The next time they met, he would be stronger than Gamagan. A few days pass. Now get this, the Lord of Kinegris wants to publicly thank Magica for saving them. But Magica shuts it down, asking if they conveniently forgot about someone else. The officials, however, refuse to acknowledge that a kid from the slums could possibly possess that kind of insane power, and with that, the Lord gives up. As they walk through the city, Arudo turns to Magica. He asks if she's really sure she doesn't want that recognition. They talk it out, but Magica is firm, frustrated by the whole situation. She can't stand that no one wants to acknowledge Arudo's real power. Arudo replies that it can't be helped. In their world, your status decides everything. He smiles and thinks to himself that only she and Hannah seem to completely ignore that societal rule. He then advises Magica to train. And this right here shows you how much our boy has grown. Don't worry, just train. Hearing that quiet conviction, Magica wonders if he's actually doing all right. Arudo mentions he's planning on heading back to the dungeon tomorrow. Right then, they pass by a man who's watching them very, very carefully. Arudo stops dead and turns. Magica asks what's caught his eye. He replies that the man's face is annoyingly familiar. He knows this guy. The same man from the guild, now sitting on the filthy asphalt. It's Lion. He's holding a sign that literally reads, "Needs warmth and affection." Lion sees Arudo, a guild employee, and is completely shocked. "It's you," he shouts, "don't you remember me?" Arudo's face is pure disgust. He claims he has never seen him before. Lion, of course, doesn't buy it. He says Arudo's face is unforgettable, then explains his pathetic situation. Basically hinting that some cash would be nice. Arudo and Magica just walk on by. Arudo turns to Magica, asking what dungeon floor she's training on. He's deliberately ignoring Lion. Suddenly, Lion throws himself at Arudo's feet. And you gotta see this, he starts begging for money, absolutely desperate. Arudo, exasperated, tries to shake him off, asking if he has any shame at all. Undeterred, Lion looks up at them, declaring he believes in their potential. They just stare back, completely silent. Lion then points to himself. He proposes they form an adventuring party, a team. A fresh start, he formally introduces himself as Lion to the two of them. As an adventurer himself, he suggests they should work together. Another pair of hands is always useful in battle. Besides, he adds, "Don't be surprised, but I'm a hero. It's a mega rare profession." Arudo just smiles. and tells Lion that he is not interested in the proposal. Lion is stunned. Arudo thinks a hero might be rare, but this guy looks useless. Magica yawns behind Arudo while Lion, still on his knees, pleads with him. I even left the guild specifically for this opportunity, Lion says. Hearing this, Arudo scoffs, more like you were caught red-handed. And then got kicked out, Lion gapes, unable to process how he knew. Then it hits him he undeniably messed up, Arudo just sighs. And that, he explains, is the exact reason why you and I see him prefer to earn money alone. Hunting in the dungeons, but out of nowhere, Lion is practically glued to Arudo again, begging to get into their party. And trust me, Magica has had enough. She rips off half a loaf of bread, shoves it at him, and tells him he's getting on her nerves. Lion just collapses to the ground. A sad heap behind them, as Arudo and Magica walk off, talking amongst themselves. Magica mentions to Arudo that she's getting hungry. Arudo tells her he just found a great spot and offers to take her there. A few days later, deep inside a dungeon, Arudo is tearing through enemies left and right. After clearing them out, he hits level 42, and his passive blade skill jumps to 43. He thinks to himself that this new sword he forged is seriously good stuff. But even after days pass, Lion still hasn't given up the chase. Arudo, on the other hand, is already thinking about climbing to a higher floor. Suddenly, Arudo hears desperate screams and the sound of someone running for their life. And who bursts into view? Lion, chased by a whole pack of wolves screaming for help. Arudo is just completely baffled to see this kid here of all places. Lion immediately starts begging Arudo to deal with the wolves on his tail. Arudo uses his magic, yells for Lion to duck, and check this out, he unleashes a wave of fire. Seeing the massive fireball, Lion just blurts out, "That was so incredibly cool." Arudo rushes over to Lion, who's already on his knees, thanking him over and over for the save. Lion explains he was just following Arudo and accidentally ended up on the upper floors. Arudo scolds him hard, beginners have no business being up here. But Lion just goes right back to asking to team up with him and Magica. An exasperated Arudo asks how many times he has to say it. Lion would just get in the way. He tells him flat out he doesn't have time to play around with him. Still on his knees, Lion quietly apologizes. Arudo turns away, telling him if he gets it, he should have gone back a long time ago. But just then, a lone wolf lunges straight for Lion. Arudo spots it, instantly slicing the wolf down, then turns to Lion, yelling to see if he's alive. Kneeling beside him, Arudo just can't believe what he's seeing. And I know what you're thinking because he's thinking it too. This is his fault. If he'd just accepted Lion, this wouldn't have happened. The kid lies there, bleeding out. But the second Lion hears Arudo's words, he shoots right up, asking if he really means it. A stunned Arudo, still asking if he's okay, can only watch in confusion. Lion just rubs his neck and casually says he forgot to mention it, but he's a vampire. Arudo's brain just short-circuits at this bombshell. Vampires, a race that's rumored to be immortal, masters of the night. Humans fear them as much as they fear any other monster, but Arudo points at Lion, asking if that's true. Lion says vampires aren't that different from regular people. He explains all those horror stories are just made up by humans. Their bodies, he says, are pretty much the same, and a serious wound could still be fatal. Lion then explains to Arudo that he's a special case, basically invulnerable. Hearing that, Arudo immediately wonders if that means he has regeneration. So Arudo asks him straight up, how did he get that power? Lion says it's a long story, and adds that he also has super high pain resistance. Arudo presses him, demanding to hear the story right now. He wants to know if it's a skill that can be acquired, and you and I both want to know that answer. It was an ability that no one could just earn, nor was it something he got through his own strength. He knew if he told Arudo the truth, he wouldn't believe it. Then Lion revealed he wasn't from this world. Arudo was absolutely stunned. You see, Lion explained he once lived in another world called Japan as a totally normal guy. He died in an accident, only to be reborn here in Yufan. In his final moments, a terrifying fear completely consumed him. Lion desperately begged not to die, and then woke up in a new world, inside a body that felt zero fear of death. Hearing all this, Arudo figured others must have had similar reincarnation experiences. But Lion clarified his resistance to pain didn't just show up overnight. He only gained this power in the first few years of his new life. At first, this new world felt like a dream come true. A vampire, a body immune to the fear of death, and even getting to be a hero, Lion felt like the main character of some epic story. But that feeling vanished just a few years later. Now pay attention, because this is where the dream becomes a nightmare. A vampire hunt started in Phorinia, all driven by the church, and Lion watched his parents get brutally murdered. Since he couldn't be killed, they grabbed him and dragged him to the church as a heretic. There, in the name of so-called divine justice, the endless torture began. Lion's body wouldn't die. But he felt every single ounce of pain. The daily agony made him crave death as his only escape. Yet no matter the pain, he stayed alive. Okay, let this sink in. 50 years later, his pain receptors finally shattered. He couldn't feel anything anymore. Lion remembered this as he stood on a blazing bonfire. In that very moment, Lion made his escape. He spent centuries running, always hiding who he was. Eventually, he made it to Kintigras and got a job at the guild. After telling his insane, movie-like life story, Lion stood before Arudo and told him flat out that he could never get the same skill. Listening to this horrific tale, Arudo could barely imagine the suffering Lion had gone through. He apologized for making him bring up such painful memories. But Lion just smiled and told Arudo not to worry about it, saying, "Those days are long gone." Still, Lion admitted he had one deep regret. If only he had been stronger, he could have saved his family. That was the one thing that haunted his soul. This made Arudo recall memories from his own past life. Lion explained he joined the guild not just for the money, but to finally get stronger. He asked Arudo again to team up with him, but Arudo just turned and walked away without a word. Lion watched him go, silently thinking he was useless after all. Then Arudo challenged him, asking how long he was just going to stand there. He told Lion to hurry up and join him, asking if he was scared of how intense his training would be. Lion's face lit up with pure joy at the mention of training, shouting how happy he was. Arudo watched Lion playing with a slime and realized something. While he couldn't understand the pain of living forever, that core desire to protect the people you love resonated deep within him, and he couldn't just walk away from someone like Lion. And so, their training began. Arudo got back to fighting opponents, sharpening his skills with the Grave Reaper's power. Shortly after, the same enemies Arudo fought before suddenly attacked Lion, who cried out for his teacher to help him. Arudo realized how many there were, and that Lion had to stop fighting like a regular human. You and I can see it plain as day. As Arudo destroyed the monsters, Lion was just shielding his head from the chaos. Arudo told Lion that overthinking his attacks was a huge mistake. You're about to see a vampire with raw power finally learn how to truly unleash it. He hands Lion a sword, and seeing his teacher's point, Lion finally agrees. Without a second thought, he charges and cuts down the opponents. Lion turns back, acknowledging Arudo as his teacher and admitting he was right. It was in that moment Arudo saw a glimpse of Lion's true strength. He asks about his power level and his current standard of living. Lion replies his level is 4, the exact same as Magica's. From then on, Arudo's sole mission became training Lion. And Lion's life level began to rise at an absolutely terrifying rate. He fought clumsily at first, but very quickly surpassed Arudo himself. And get this, they tackled dungeons at a speed Arudo had never imagined possible. Every 10 floors, Magica joins them to crush the area boss. After downing a massive monster, Lion confidently tells his teacher their team is unstoppable. He boasts their dungeon clear time is going to be legendary. Magica had never even dreamed they would one day defeat the 90th floor boss. 6 years later, Arudo stands over the fallen beast, turning to Magica and Lion. He thanks them for their unwavering support. His goal is the 100th floor. He declares that from this point forward, the game is on a whole new level. Hana's fated death is now only 1 year away. A short time later, Arudo gathers his things and departs from the guild. The owner asks if Arudo is really leaving. He confirms it and thanks her. The girl asks where he plans to go, admitting that she'll feel lonely now. Arudo reveals his plan: attend a specific school in Euphonia's capital. But just then, Magica and Lion come rushing down the stairs right towards him. Lion gets right in Arudo's face, asking if he's really leaving the city. Magica stands beside him, just as shocked, having heard nothing about this. Arudo's plan had been to leave completely alone. His friends immediately demand to know why he didn't tell them anything. All Arudo can say is that he was planning to say his goodbyes. But he knows Hana's death is only a single year away. His entire focus had to be on protecting her. A fight with Gamagan was coming. A battle like that might just demand his life, and he refused to endanger them. Lion watches him, remarking that he probably has his own reasons. But Magica steps forward, declaring she's going with him no matter what. She explains she still hasn't repaid Arudo for what he did 6 years ago. She adds that there's no way she'll let him escape after they've come this far. And Lion, of course he's joining, saying students always follow their teacher. For the past 6 years, no other young man has grown this strong. Magica adds that if anything were to happen, they would be there to save him. Arudo is surprised at first, but then he just lets out a laugh. He realizes he has no choice and invites them all to come together. With that, they board the carriage and finally set off. As they travel through the mountains, Lion yawns, complaining about how boring it is. They've been on the road for 4 days now, and he wonders where they're even going. Even-headed, Arudo just tells one that once they're off the mountain, he'll see for himself. If he has nothing better to do, he can tag along with Arudo. Arudo was talking about his training, specifically how he concentrates his mana. At that very moment, Magica sits down beside him, observing. After hearing Arudo's invitation, she declines with a thank you, saying that only Arudo could train so effectively just by sitting still. Magica then asks what their plan is when they finally reach Euphonia. Arudo reveals his big plan: he's going to enroll in a school. And not just any school, he's aiming for the Royal Courts Institution, one of the country's absolute finest and most exclusive. One is shocked by this, questioning if Arudo is serious about studying or if he even needs to. Arudo, however, stays silent. And then bam, the carriage jolts hard, almost throwing one right out with a scream. Arudo and Magica exchange surprised looks. Turning to their coachman, who then announces that one of the wheels is completely stuck in a rut. He's going to try and free it, but he warns them they might not be going anywhere. Magica turns to Arudo, asking what they should do now. Arudo just buries his face in his hands before standing. He looks at Magica and says there's no other option, they'll have to walk from here. But one jumps in, telling Arudo that won't be necessary at all, and that Arudo should just leave it to him. Moments later, the driver is skeptical, asking if he can really pull the wheel out. One, unfurling his belt, just scoffs at the idea. He declares the driver's help is no longer needed and tells him to leave the cart and just head back with the horse. Then, without hesitation, one lifts the entire massive chunk of land the cart is resting on and starts running with it. He carries it straight through the mountains, probably thinking this is a much more heroic way to travel. But really, he's just eager to cover ground quickly. Placing the cart back down on the path, one turns to his companions, asking if his efforts were good enough. The driver looks inside and just sees Magica and Arudo sprawled on top of each other, and she remarks that he should have accounted for the G-force. Arudo, clearly pissed off, calls one over, threatening to just leave him behind next time he pulls a stunt like that. one just sits there nursing a new bump on his head, thinking that Arudo will surely appreciate their faster travel pace. He looks back at the path they just crossed, confident they saved a ton of time. Soon enough, the capital of Euphonia stretches out before them. Arudo tells Magica and one to handle the luggage while he goes on ahead. And with a leap, Arudo sprints straight for the city gates. As he runs, his thoughts are completely fixated on Hannah. She was here so close, his dear, one-of-a-kind Hannah. He thinks about their shared past, the real reason he's heading to the royal school. Even if they're not destined to be lovers again in this life, he just needs to see her now. At that exact moment, Hannah is standing in the middle of a street. A woman beside her asks why she looks so startled. Hannah explains that her heart has suddenly started pounding. It's a feeling like the person she's been searching for is incredibly close. She's never felt anything like it before in her life. The woman simply responds, "Who knows, maybe the person destiny has waiting for you is somewhere close by. And trust me." Intrigued by this idea, Hannah asks who this fated person might be. The woman admits she can't possibly know, but tells Hannah not to worry. The moment she finally meets him, everything will become perfectly clear. How do you find someone you've never met? Trust me, destiny has a funny way of working things out. Because that's the exact moment Arudo walks out of a tunnel into the city. He's standing right there, just inches away from her. Soon after, Lion and Magica arrive on the scene. Lion looks around, impressed, saying it's like a real capital. A city totally fit for a guy like Arudo, who they've just now caught up to. Arudo asks him what he means by that. Lion explains that in his world, grand cities like this always have work for heroes. Arudo is a little stunned, but explains this city is the heart of the kingdom, home to 3 million people. He points towards the huge castle, telling Lion to look at the royal palace and all the government buildings surrounding it. The homes of the most powerful nobles line the streets, and a massive state church for Fordamus stands right across from the castle. He warns them they need to be careful here. A second later, Lion spots Fordamus inside that same church. Instantly, he declares there's no way he's going anywhere near her. After grabbing a room at an inn, Arudo asks what their plans are, since he's about to start preparing for the royal school entrance exams. Lion is shocked. An entrance exam, Arudo just says of course there is. It's the best school in the entire country, after all. The city also has a guild and even a dungeon, though it's smaller than the one in Kintigras. Arudo figures finding an adventure or two shouldn't be a problem for them. He tells them he left his inn details, so they can call if they run into trouble. Lion just gives him a quick thumbs up. After a quick look between him and Magica, they leave Arudo to handle his own business. As Arudo gets to the royal court school, he sees the massive crowd gathered for admissions. This year, 10,000 applicants are fighting for just 100 spots. Finding Hannah in this crowd, yeah, needle in a haystack, but you and I know he has to try. He decides to look around inside while he has a moment. He walks past a bench that stops him dead in his tracks. A memory from his past life just hits him hard. It's a place he and Hannah used to sit together all the time. 70 years, he thinks. If he gets in, he's sure he'll find her again, but then something else catches his eye. He sees Lion begging an admissions officer, asking if she could just look the other way. The girl, of course, tells him absolutely not. That's when Arudo walks up. He asks Lion and Magica what on earth they're doing here. Lion sees him and turns to the teacher. Magica claims they're just here to test their skills. They want to take the exam too, but Lion immediately calls her out, saying she's not being honest. Her real goal was to help Arudo get into the school. Magica immediately slugs Lion, telling him to shut his mouth. From the floor, Lion complains, asking why she hit him so hard. She just scoffs, saying if she'd actually used her full strength, he wouldn't even be getting up from that spot. The admissions officer turns to Arudo, asking him about the exam fee. Hearing that, Arudo looks genuinely confused. An exam fee. Lion. Still on the ground, explains they don't have enough money, so they were trying to negotiate their way in. Arudo is furious. What happened to all the money you saved up? Magica says Lion let them all down. He blew their entire savings on expensive food while they were touring the city. District, Arudo started to chew them out for their actions while he was gone. But a new voice cut in, and you just know this guy is going to be trouble. Without warning, a rush of wind magic blasted the group, throwing them off balance. A man materialized out of thin air, declaring the school to be a place of rich history and noble traditions. Not for some uncivilized provincials. Arudo recognized him immediately as Deutsch. Lion shot back, "Who's this clown?" He kept going, calling out the sheer hypocrisy. The man who just called them uncivilized provincials was the one who just attacked them with magic. If he's after a fight, Lion declared, clenching his fists, he's found one. But Arudo quickly stepped in, telling Lion to cool it. This was a professor at the school, and starting trouble would wreck their exam results. Arudo knew this guy's deal. Deutsch was always obsessed with a student's background. Social status and how much money they had was all that mattered to him. He asked where they were from, noting they didn't look like nobles, but then he saw Arudo and addressed him directly. "Are you really planning to take our exam with only a first level of life?" Arudo just stared back, surprised by the sudden confrontation. Deutsch just waved it off, telling Arudo he should pack up and go home. His chance of passing was 0, a total waste of the entrance fee. Glancing at Magica and Lion, Deutsch added he didn't think Arudo's friends stood a chance either. Arudo, however, silently decided that Deutsch had left him no choice, thanking him for the motivation. He put a bag of money down for the entrance fee, then declared that he would indeed enroll and prove himself, not with words, but with his exam results. He firmly believed that this school, no matter how prejudiced Deutsch was staffed by people who judged students based on their actual merit. Arudo turned and walked away. Deutsch watched the three of them go. Arudo's arrogance, he thought, was off the charts. A kid with only a first level of life actually believed himself to be something special. If so, Deutsch decided, he genuinely wanted to see what Arudo was really made of. And with that, he turned and left. The exam itself was split into 2 stages. A written test before lunch and a practical exam right after. First, the students gathered in the classroom for the written part. Arudo's question involved calculating the departure times for 3 separate military detachments. One on horseback at 10 kilometers per hour, a foot detachment at 4, and an equipment unit at 2. The goal was to make all 3 arrive at the same time, at a destination 30 kilometers away. As Arudo worked on the problem, he glanced over at Lion, wondering if he was okay. The big guy was visibly struggling with it. He then looked at Magica, who was handling it like a pro, a clear sign of all her hard work and preparation. Arudo knew he couldn't afford to get cocky. A few moments later, Deutsch appeared right in front of Arudo's desk. He was thinking about how pointless it was for a level 1 to even try. He thought that written scores alone meant nothing, and there would be 0 mercy in the practical test, which he revealed he would personally oversee. And here we go, this is the part you and I have been waiting for. Tapping his cane on the floor, Deutsch announced it was time to start the practical exam. He looked at all the students, explaining their task was to destroy the cube sitting before him. Deutsch told them to use any method they wanted, but it wasn't going to be simple. From the stands, our heroes watched as everything unfolded. Just as instructed, student after student stepped up to try and break the cube, and every single one of them failed miserably. Despite all their attempts, the cube remained flawless, and he jotted down that it was another year of weaklings. Deutsch, seeing that no one had passed, muttered who could possibly break this damn enhanced magic, but then Magica steps onto the field. Lion immediately starts cheering, shouting for her to show everyone what she's got. She just tells him to be quiet. And you and I know Deutsch recognizes Magica as the squirrel girl who caused a scene in the admissions office. Her name, he thought, sounded familiar. But he shrugged it off. She's just a beastman, probably relying on pure strength. But this reinforced magic is top tier. It's impossible to destroy with some half-hearted attack, Deutsch declared. Magica lifts the cube, instantly figuring out its hidden weak points. With one precise strike, she cracks it and then shatters it completely. The whole crowd loses their minds. On their feet, cheering for Magica for absolutely wrecking the cube, Deutsch, watching all this, could barely process the attack. It wasn't just a punch with incredible speed and skill. Looking at the shattered pieces and replaying it in his head, he realized she had hit the exact same spot, over and over again. Then a memory hit him. Magica Estate Terra, the very same Magica that the Vatican had labeled as a huge risk factor. Why is this beastman at our school? He wondered, then announced that the girl had passed. Next was Lion. Walking toward the cube, he confidently states, "I'm next." And trust me, Deutsch just writes him off as another fool. Definitely not a designated risk factor. Lion then summons a sphere right over the cube, warning everyone to get ready, and in a flash, everything was annihilated. Deutsch used his staff to shield his eyes, unable to believe the scene. Standing among the cube's million shattered pieces, Lion casually asks, "Was that about right?" Deutsch, still frozen in shock, just stared at the kid. In all his years running these exams, he had never once seen the cube so utterly destroyed. Then, seething with anger, Deutsch declared, "The guy passed." Lion leans over, confirming he passed and expressing relief that the instructor wasn't hurt. Deutsch, looking absolutely defeated, called for the next examinee, but his face screamed that he needed a serious break. Suddenly, the entire testing ground restored itself. Deutsch was just baffled by how these self-taught kids, one a Vatican-designated threat, had just wiped out the entire exam site. "We've never had results like these," Deutsch exclaimed to the other professors, reporting the completely insane outcome. The admissions committee was immediately worried about the new students. "Are we seriously considering enrolling them?" one of them asked. But another professor highlighted their fourth-level abilities, suggesting if they joined the army, they would bring immense glory to our school. Still, another voice argued that their issues were obvious. All eyes turned to Deutsch, waiting on his final call. He admitted they had behavioral issues, but shot back, "We don't get students with fourth level, trust me. You're about to see a professor rig an exam and instantly regret it." The teachers believe in Professor Deutsch to guide their new students. So based on his word, they agree to accept the class. But while checking the list, Deutsch spots a problem, a student named Arudo. Turns out, Arudo is a dropout with the lowest rank, a first standard. By the rules, he should be immediately rejected. Deutsch gets a bad feeling. If a student like Arudo passes, the school's reputation would be ruined. He decides then and there, Arudo will fail no matter what it takes. So he brings out a reinforced magic cube and places it center stage. Announcing the exam is back on, he secretly vows to block any low rankers. This cube has been enchanted with some seriously tough reinforcement magic. It also has absorption magic. It gets stronger with every single hit. Now watch this, Deutsch thinks even a pro mage couldn't scratch it. He's totally confident in his little trap and signals for the trial to begin. But the next student up isn't Arudo, and Deutsch is instantly annoyed. He silently curses. He was sure Arudo would be the next one. This kid wasn't with the first group of students who came up. Skeptical, Deutsch just sighs and tells the kid to get started. The student winds up and unleashes his attack on the cube. Watching him, Deutsch scoffs. Is this the best they have? This guy has zero mana control. Why was I even worried about Arudo? This kid is way worse, just as Deutsch calls out his failure. The cube starts to glow, to transform. Deutsch can't believe his eyes. Suddenly, a massive torrent of red mana erupts, throwing him back. Let that sink in, his own trap just created total chaos. Everyone stares at the unbelievable scene playing out down below. People had been talking about the last student, but this is critical. The mana is completely out of control, and from the stands, Arudo appears. He calmly tells everyone to evacuate. He'll handle the mana storm. As he walks, a powerful whirlwind of energy forms right in front of him. He realizes this isn't just a simple rampage, something else is happening. He spots Deutsch struggling against the overwhelming pressure from the mana. Even the professor's protective magic is about to shatter. This is bad. One wrong move and this whole thing becomes a complete disaster. Deutsch tries to help, but realizes his own magic is totally drained. If this keeps up, people are going to get hurt, badly. Trapped inside the whirlwind, Deutsch throws up a shield, but it's already cracking. That's when Arudo uses some kind of unique ability to calm the storm. Deutsch just watches, his jaw on the floor, absolutely stunned. Arudo walks over and asks if they're okay. Deutsch can only ask, how? Arudo replies calmly, just put up shields and keep everyone safe. I'll handle this outburst. He's giving orders to the professor. Deutsch snaps back, telling Arudo not to be ridiculous. He can handle it. But Arudo just stares him down. The professor warns the cube is unstable. And you and I both know what that means. It's a ticking time bomb. All right, watch this. He reaches for the cube, channeling his power to stop its volatile reaction. Deutsch watches, completely stunned, wondering if Arudo just did the impossible. Did he neutralize the mana? Though injured, Arudo focuses hard on the cube. He brings its surging energy to a dead stop, carefully taking it into his hands. It seems Aloes was sealed in this cube, Arudo remarks, before explaining everything. He says this school only takes students with immense magical power. So the teacher probably wouldn't realize this spell only works with something different. It needs incredibly weak magic, which gives it a uniquely faint effect. Deutsch just looks at Arudo, asking who he really is. The teacher had his suspicions. He thought Arudo was just some half-trained commoner with a basic power level. But now he sees that even someone with a modest start can achieve anything. If they work hard enough, suddenly the cube, its energy spent, cracks and shatters. Deutsch declares, Arudo, you've passed the exam, and that's it. Everyone starts congratulating the students who made it. Later, at a shop, they try on their brand new academy uniforms. The seller congratulates them on passing the exam, as Arudo and his friends get dressed in their new outfits. And they look incredibly sharp. Lion, adjusting his clothes, comments that he's never worn anything this luxurious in his life. Arudo turns to Lion. He comments on how good the new outfit looks, especially on him, but when Lion doesn't answer right away, he turns, asking Arudo to say that again. Just then, Magica walks in, asking if they have anything a little more practical. She's dressed in the uniform with a skirt, and she explains an outfit like this will just get in her way, and besides, her feet are freezing. But the guys, and you know what? They're right. They immediately say how great she looks, like a true noble. Lion looks over at Magica and drops a little proverb, a stump looks good in a headdress. Magica instantly bonks him on the head, retorting that he was never given permission to speak. With that handled, they get back to choosing their uniforms. The seller asks if there were any issues with the fits. The group confirms everything is perfect, then he hands them an order form. He explains that the final tailoring will take no more than 2 weeks. And here's the catch you and I saw coming. It costs 10 gold coins per person. Seeing the cost, the whole group just freezes, unsure if they actually have to pay. Arudo, seeing their shocked faces, turns to them and asks what's wrong. Lion snaps back. 10 gold coins, a normal person could live for half a year on that much. And this is just for clothes. Arudo finally gets it, his friends are broke too. He says he'll pay for them, figuring there's no other way around it. Magica immediately cuts in, saying that is not okay, especially since Arudo already covered their exam fees, so the group turns to the seller with an idea. They ask if payment can be made on pickup, and to their surprise, he says yes. That arrangement is fine. With that settled, they practically drag Arudo away. And you and I both know what broke adventurers do next, head straight to the guild for cash. Arudo is completely bewildered, asking if he's really getting pulled into this too. Lion just explains that as their mentor, Arudo can't possibly abandon them. Not when his students are in trouble, so they arrive at the guild and check the board. They scan for quests and find a request for goblin extermination, offering 12 copper coins and taking down a giant sewer rat for 20 silver. Lion wasn't impressed. These quests don't pay much. At this rate, we won't build up 10 gold coins in 2 weeks, even though there are plenty of tasks on the way. But then Lion spotted a task that changed everything, and you're going to want to see this. A 30 gold reward. Arudo glanced over, questioning the massive payout. When he asked what the job was, Lion revealed it required them to subdue a fire dragon living in the northern mountains. Arudo immediately declared the mission impossible. Everyone was shocked and pressed him for a reason. Arudo explained that dragons were legendary creatures, survivors of the Great War of the Gods from 150 years ago. He said just one appearing could trigger a catastrophe big enough to wipe an entire country off the map. Hearing about such a disaster, Magica wondered if monsters like that really existed. Arudo clarified that while they are rare, they absolutely exist. In his past life, he had actually met and even fought a dragon before. But even at level 99, his only choice was to run for his life. Lion then asked if the danger was truly that serious. Arudo shot back, if that's the case, 30 gold is a ridiculous price. The risk is insane. As a former guild guy, I'd say 1,000 gold would be more fitting. Arudo realized Lion was right. Magica then turned to Lion, asking if the quest might just be fake information. Lion, still holding the paper, said if it was, the supervisory committee would have taken the notice down by now. They are very strict about that here, he added. Arudo realized this was his chance, a chance to change the course of history. There's something hidden in this request, he thought. I know what you're thinking. And yeah, Arudo told the group he was getting curious and that they should accept it. As Lion left, he confirmed he'd handle all the arrangements for the quest. Arudo stressed that a dragon encounter was incredibly rare, so they had to prepare perfectly. Little did they know, someone was watching their entire conversation from the shadows. A week later, the group was back in the wilderness, battling more monsters. Magica, sitting on top of a massive boar, finally voiced her frustration. No matter how much we search, we only find small fry. Maybe it really was a lie. Lion scanned their surroundings, immediately dismissing that possibility. Arudo, walking toward the downed beast, noticed the light was fading. He suggested they set up camp for the night. Soon, they were gathered around a fire. Lion praised the delicious food, adding that eating together was the best part of their journey. Arudo held up a piece of slime he'd collected. He commented that selling all their gathered materials and magic stones would be enough to cover the cost of their team uniforms. He admitted he was disappointed they hadn't found the dragon and that they should return to the city of Euphonia tomorrow morning. As Magica ate, she said softly how much she would miss their adventures together. Arudo agreed he'd miss them too, but tonight, he said, I have something to give you. His companions lined in, asking what it could be. Arudo then revealed the pendants he'd made. He'd crafted them using his blacksmithing skills, pouring all of his strength into them. He handed one to each of them. As Magica held hers, she felt a mysterious power. Stick with me here. Arudo reflects on a force that's both gentle and profoundly strong. He once believed he would always be alone, but now here they were, gathered together. Around a campfire, he never imagined his future could hold this kind of warmth. These pendants were his way of showing them his gratitude. Smiling, Arudo thanks his friends. After dinner, the companions drift off to sleep, but Arudo's eyes suddenly snap wide open. The heat is unbearable. Sleep is now impossible. Soon after, the others stir, all of them wondering about the intense heat. Stepping out of the tent, they find the entire forest ablaze, engulfed in fire. A dragon, suddenly, a massive one screams, and trust me, you're not ready for this. His companions gaze up at it. It was a real dragon. The guild assignment was legit. They see the dragon itself is wreathed in flames, a terrible sign. Every instinct they have screams for them to run, and that's when Lion asks about gems. His friends just grab him, yelling for him to run faster as the dragon attacks. It spews fire right where Lion had been standing just moments before. A near-perfect miss. Lion's legs are literally smoking from the scorching heat. They're trapped, caught right in the middle of a tightening circle of flames. Magica yells it out. There's nowhere left to run. It seems their only chance is to defeat this dragon. Arudo suddenly recalls the dragons from his past life. The ones he fought before were intelligent enough to speak just like humans. But this dragon is silent and appears smaller, which leads Arudo to a chilling conclusion. He's facing an even mightier foe. Arudo steels himself. He can't let fear win. Not if he wants to save Hannah, so without any hesitation, Arudo attacks. He unleashes a water cut, thinking that water is a fire dragon's natural weakness. But instantly, the dragon summons a shield, a completely unexpected move. Arudo is stunned. He knows Magica's magic has no chance of breaking through it. But Magica springs into action anyway, shouting that she'll help. Lion joins her. Together, they rush the dragon. After landing a hit, Magica realizes something. Its physical strength is off the charts. She knows that their current attacks aren't going to make a dent. Arudo thinks back to his past life. He knows there's a weak spot. He screams for Magica to distract the beast. His plan is to deliver the final blow himself, so Magica tries to get its attention. But her attempts to draw the dragon's focus prove to be completely useless. Fleeing from the dragon's fire, Lion shouts out, totally bewildered. He wonders why it's chasing him so relentlessly when he hasn't even attacked. Arudo realizes something. It's a bad time for a new strategy, but Lion's unique skill might be key. He calls out to Lion, saying he has a plan, and let's just say it's absolutely insane. Lion urges his master to stop delaying and just spit it out already, and so Arudo does. He shockingly orders Lion to get hit by the dragon, practically begging him. Lion is utterly baffled. He can't even comprehend what Arudo is asking of him. Even with his immortality, Lion refuses to just stand there and take the hit. Arudo assures his friend it will be fine, promising to use his magic to weaken it. He just needs Lion to trust him. Having no other choice, Lion reluctantly agrees. "You are one cruel mentor," Lion mutters as he braces himself before the dragon. He stands directly in its path. Arudo immediately launches a hacking attack. Together they block the dragon's attack. Arudo screams for Magica to move in now. All right, let's watch as Magica finds this dragon's one glaring weakness. She strikes it dead on, and the dragon absolutely howls in pain. Realizing her attack worked, she knows she has to act fast. She unleashes a freezing star. But as Magica readies another strike, the dragon slams her with its tail, sending her crashing to the ground, completely motionless. In that instant, Arudo and Lion can only watch in absolute terror. Just as Magica was knocked down by the dragon, the pendant on her neck suddenly activates. Its entire purpose is to prevent instant death. As she plummets toward the ground, she feels the pendant guiding her. This piece of gear just prevented her from being killed on impact. She tries to get up. Now watch this. The dragon is moving in to step on her. The others immediately scream her name and rush to her side. Moments later, the dragon stomps down, but there's no one beneath its foot. It looks around, confused, with no idea where she vanished. Arudo, he managed to save her. Lion helps support her, admitting he never knew that gravity spell could be used that way. Arudo explains that in a pinch like this, it's perfect for a quick escape. Lion holds Magica, asking if she's all right. She confirms she is. He then turns to Arudo, asking about the antileptic. Arudo says it was in the tent, but the dragon already burned it down. Just then, the little slime next to Arudo presents him with something. Arudo is stunned, barely able to believe the slime actually managed to save the antileptic. Lion claps Arudo on the shoulder, calling the slime a good little fellow. They immediately give the antileptic to Magica. She revives almost instantly, apologizing for her carelessness. She admits that without the pendant Arudo gave her, she absolutely wouldn't have survived. But now, trust me, she's ready to show the dragon what she can really do. The others urge her not to rush things, insisting that Arudo and Lion will handle the dragon while Magica hides with them. But Magica confronts Arudo, declaring she can still fight. She argues that leaving it to Lion alone is too big a burden for Arudo. Who's going to finish the dragon? Lion just stares at her. Arudo, however, says he understands her point, so a new plan is needed. While they strategize, the dragon continues to prowl around, searching for them. Moments later, Lion steps out to face the dragon, asking what it's looking for. He boldly calls it a blockhead and announces his presence. The dragon immediately charges. Lion knows what he has to do. Distract the beast for just 1 minute while Arudo prepares a trap. He smashes a nearby tree, saying out loud that he's not as fast as Magica and can't toy with the dragon for long. But his specialty is strength and endurance. The dragon burns the tree Lion throws, barely slowing its charge. It keeps coming right for him. Lion turns to Arudo asking if he needs more time. Arudo yells back that the prep is almost done, just a little bit longer. To buy that precious time, Lion hurls a massive stone at the dragon. The beast dodges, and we just watched it walk straight into Arudo's trap. Realizing it worked, Lion unleashes a powerful strike against the trapped dragon. And just then, Magica's voice cuts through the chaos. "Let's jump in," he's screaming at Lion. "Is it faster or just rushing straight at me?" Arudo warns everyone the spell will only hold the beast for 10 seconds. Any longer and they're all dead. Lion gets ready to launch Magica, asking if she's ready. Her response is priceless. She fires back, "Are you seriously asking me that?" With a mighty roar, Lion launches Magica sky-high, shouting for her to go all in. Magica unleashes Twinkling Star and Fist of Dreams, hammering the dragon, but it just blasts her with a huge fireball. As she falls back, Magica apologizes, saying the dragon's reaction was completely off. The thing is, the beast isn't smart. It fell right into their trap. Her spells were just bait, getting it to look up. Now its critical weak spot is exposed. Now pay attention. It's all up to Lion to deliver the final, killing blow, and his friends have total faith in him. Wielding the Sword of Courage, Lion charges and takes the dragon's head clean off. In one triumphant moment, the beast falls and the whole party just erupts in cheers, celebrating their perfectly coordinated victory. Turning to Arudo, Lion eagerly asks if he can finally, truly call himself a dragon slayer. Arudo agrees, praising his perfect strike. Overflowing with joy, Lion just yells, "I finally got it." It sounds so damn awesome. Magica, though, can't believe Arudo actually trusted Lion with the final blow. Lion is completely floored by her comment, wondering if she's actually trying to start a fight. But then Magica just admits that. For once, Lion really pulled his own weight, and she'd count on him again if needed. Lion just looks at Magica, totally unsure if she's complimenting him or just crazy. Arudo just watches his team in silence, but right here is where things get weird. A sudden wave of dizziness hits them all, and none of them understand why. Magica clutches her head and wonders aloud, was that really just from leveling up? That's when Arudo realizes his system shows he jumped 8 levels, hitting level 78. It was a massive leap, as he'd barely gained even a single level recently, even after slaying countless demons. Arudo grabs his friends in a hug, who are confused by the sudden gesture. He warns them that if they pass out now, they risk waking up inside a monster's stomach in the morning. He summons a stone wall for protection, they collapse, and Arudo tells Rue to watch over them. Ru, ever loyal, immediately obeys his master. That night the moon casts a strange, beautiful light. The companions pass out. And the next morning, when they wake, they are completely disoriented by what's in front of them. A scorching heat envelops them, and a blinding red light pulses before their eyes. Opening his eyes, Arudo sees a colossal magic stone, a dragon's magic stone. Turning to Ru, Arudo asks if he actually dragged the whole thing all the way here. A very tired Ru confirms it. Praising Ru, Arudo says he even managed to collect a magic stone while staying vigilant. He gives Ru a huge hug, expressing his pride, which makes the spirit ecstatic. Magica, looking at Arudo, comments that she has never seen such a vibrant magic stone. Lion, his gaze fixed on it, asks the same, "Is that really a dragon stone?" As they all stare, they are completely struck by its sheer beauty. And you and I both know, after a fight like that, they have more than earned this incredible prize. Dragon, glancing at the massive corpse behind them, Arudo knew this stone was just one of many prizes. The next moment, drawing his blade, Arudo began carving into the dragon's leg. A bewildered Lion asked what Arudo was doing. And get this, Arudo tells them they aren't just abandoning this entire mountain of treasure. Take its scales, for example. Sew them into clothes, and they create armor tough enough to deflect iron swords. Its claws could be forged into razor-thin blades, sharp enough to slice right through solid steel. Even a mantle made from its hide was rumored to grant protection against magical attacks. Then, pointing to a glistening object, Arudo identified a rare and valuable component, the dragon's eyeball. It goes for an incredibly high price. The others just stared in shock as Arudo held up the huge eyeball, then his own eyes started gleaming. Arudo declared he'd found the rarest material of all, the dragon's heart. At that moment, Lion just fainted. Magica, grabbing Arudo by the collar, tried to revive Lion, surprised he had actually collapsed. Magica, looking at Arudo, asked what the dragon's heart was even for. Arudo explained that if it's left for about 3 years, it transforms into a resurrection potion. Let that sink in for a second. Magica recalled hearing of a medicine like that, but never knew it was made from dragon hearts. Lion then clarified that, unfortunately, it only works on humans. After they meticulously dismantled the dragon, Arudo calculated that the haul was definitely enough to cover the cost of their new uniforms. He realized he wouldn't have to worry about money for a while. Turning to Magica, Arudo warned her not to overspend. Magica agreed. Arudo then wondered how to transport all the valuable materials, unwilling to leave any of it behind. Right then, Lion, now awake, mentioned how useful an inventory skill would be. Arudo was stunned by the very mention of an inventory. Lion struggled to explain, suggesting it was like Arudo was storing things in invisible pockets, like something you'd see in a video game. Turning to Arudo, Lion asked for answers, exclaiming, "What is this? It can't be real." The ability to store an infinite number of items is beyond human capability. Arudo figured with his bag destroyed, they'd just have to take only what they could carry and come back for the rest. Then the slime turned towards him. Arudo asked what was wrong. The slime then presented him with his bag, and Arudo suddenly understood how Ru had pulled it right out of its own body. Arudo then wondered if Ru could move the dragon's stone the same way. Thinking it was impossible, Arudo turned to Ru and asked if he could take in such a large haul of material. Ru just opened its mouth and slurped up every single object lying before him, leaving Arudo and his friends completely stunned. "You and I knew it, though." Lion clutched the slime, declaring, "Inventory doesn't exist." At this, Arudo wept, lamenting that all his careful sorting of the materials was for nothing. While Arudo and his companions sat there, Arudo being comforted, an unseen observer watched them. This girl mused that only 3 people, especially that boy, had managed to kill a whole dragon. It seemed God was right. "Trust me, you want to see where this goes." She eagerly anticipated what surprises the future held. Upon arriving at the guild, Arudo announced that everyone should listen up. because they had completed the dragon-slaying request. Lion then invited the guild members to inspect the evidence. Meanwhile, with the demon materials, the appraiser says they seem legit, but there are plenty of ways to get them, like buying them at an auction. The guild staff tells them straight up, "We can't buy these or pay the reward." They ask the group to take the materials back, but Lion immediately objects. He argues that these aren't some second-hand goods they're trying to sell. And right here, Arudo knows their proof isn't gonna cut it. He thinks about destiny, how everyone's path is basically set in stone. Trying to change that path is incredibly difficult, almost impossible. It creates blind spots, just like the magic that fills this world. Arudo turns to Lion and apologizes, saying they have no choice but to give up. Lion is totally confused, unable to understand why they should back down. I mean, they really did defeat the dragon, but the guild just isn't buying it. The guild members stand their ground, completely unconvinced by their story. Arudo explains their real goal was just earning enough for new uniforms. He says they'll just have to find another way to sell the materials. Lion gets the logic, but he still can't accept just surrendering like this. Suddenly, a sharp voice cuts through the noise, telling them to keep it down. Arudo looks up, completely shocked, and yeah, a new player has just entered the game. The girl remarks that even if corals are the guild's main decor, this is overkill. She asks if they were aware of that. They just stare, asking who she is. She introduces herself as Citri Justice, the future head of her duchy. Lion, clearly not understanding the situation, tells her not to interfere. He just wants her to stay out of their business, but she's not having it. The girl shoots back that he asked for her name, and she simply answered. Then she hits them with, "So what kind of barbarian adventurers are you anyway?" Lion visibly grits his teeth, trying his best not to lose his cool. He demands to know what she meant by that last insult, but Arudo steps in. Arudo tells him to calm down, studying the girl and repeating her name quietly. He recognizes her as an official from the Council of True and False. Not just any official, one of Euphonia's 12 legendary generals. What is she doing here? She walks over to the appraisal table, picks up an item, and identifies it. Fresh spinal fluid. This proves the materials were gathered just days ago. It's proof they didn't buy them. She even points out they asked the guild to buy it. And if Citri, one of the 12 generals, insists, the guild has to agree. Next, she gets right in Arudo's face, saying she can't believe he's a dragon slayer. Especially at his age, it's almost unbelievable. She leans in closer. "I can't wait to see what other tricks you have up your sleeve," she whispers. Arudo just sweats, completely caught off guard as she stares him down. Later, as they leave the guild, Lion is ecstatic, holding 150 gold coins. He's never seen so much money, but Magica quickly reminds him not to get carried away. Arudo walks behind, wondering why Citri spoke directly to him and not the others. Trust me, this changes everything for him. Did she actually figure out his plan? He's spent over 10 years meticulously planning to rescue Hannah. His current home is key. He knew this would happen, but still resolved not to alter his original plan. Changing it now would just be a bluff. Stick with me, let's see how this gamble plays out. He had no other choice but to move forward, telling himself it would all be fine. So far, so good. Arudo tried to quiet his nerves. Meanwhile, Citri was. And let's check in with her. In the courtyard, she's effortlessly taking down her opponent. A footman comes over, asking her to stop, noting she's already won and seems more fired up than usual. Did something happen in the city? He asks. Her reply. She believes she's finally found her little man, and that God's words are finally coming true. It was worth it, she thinks, sending the request to hunt dragons. The state will do anything to kill dragons, even though it's seen as an impossible task for any one person, highly unlikely, but if someone actually defies fate, if someone appears and kills a dragon. Now pay attention, because this little man is the one who will lead the world to disaster. A new source of danger. She isn't absolutely sure, but she can't just ignore him. The way their eyes met, that flash of fighting spirit, she remembers Arudo's gaze. Citri believes that if he wasn't walking a righteous path, he never would have. Shown a spirit like that, moments later, she casually deflects another attack. She tells Lord Formus to watch her closely. She plans to reveal Arudo's true nature. Back under the sun, Arudo, Magica, and Lion arrive at the academy to check the newly announced class placements. Lion eagerly searches for his name, and there it is. He's in Class C as well, right next to the names are the exam scores, which just confuses Lion. He wonders why placements aren't strictly based on merit anymore. If that's the case, why is he still in the second lowest class? Magica just guesses that Arudo's written exam scores were probably a complete train wreck. Arudo then asks Magica what class she was placed in. She proudly announces she's not only in Class A, but she's also a scholarship student. Lion can't believe it, while Arudo offers her a genuinely warm congratulations. Magica then asks, "So you were placed in Class A too, right, Arudo?" He tells them he's in Class D, which, as you can imagine, completely floors his friends. Lion literally collapses, wailing that Arudo studied for so long, only to end up in a class below him. He jokingly accuses Arudo of maybe writing his answers in all the wrong places. At that, Magica just snaps. She calls Lion an idiot for being so rude and smacks him right across the head. Arudo explains that for someone from a peasant family with his humble background, anything higher than Class D was impossible, no matter what his scores were. Besides, Arudo reveals that school life doesn't really matter much to him. He doesn't care about his placement. Everything is fine. Hearing this, his friends are left completely speechless. A moment later, they've arrived. They're already saying goodbye, heading off to their respective classes. Arudo hopes they both fit in okay as he approaches his own classroom, the place where he knows his troubles are about to start, if he remembers correctly. He knows what's coming. The second he opens this door, water will come splashing down. The student responsible claims he was just practicing his water magic, then gives a fake apology for the mishap, insisting it wasn't on purpose. He asks for forgiveness, all while calling him peasant garbage. Arudo has seen this a million times, the mockery from the upper classes. He instantly understands the situation and just wishes the guy success with his practice. All right, let's jump in. Arudo saw it coming. This whole scene had played out before. The students watching were baffled. Why wasn't he getting wet at all? The guy who cast the spell gets his magic back, blaming his friend's terrible aim. Saying it's his turn now, he launches an attack. However, Arudo simply counters the magic with his own, effortlessly staying dry. The attacker couldn't comprehend how he just repelled his spells so easily. Arudo just sits down, opens his bag, and thinks how in his past life a simple feat like this would be considered master-level sorcery. His attackers are clueless, concluding he must have powerful magic armor that he stole. And of course, they were convinced they needed to reclaim it for themselves. Using fire magic, the young man declared that was a slightly dangerous spell. But if Arudo's wearing armor, then it's nothing terrible. Looking at his opponents, Arudo realized they were actually treating him like a thief. He wondered, was he really reckless enough to use offensive magic in front of everyone? Still, he thought their abilities can't be all that strong, but just then, another student entered the class and unleashed a fireball. Now watch this. Arudo leaped up from his seat, managing to block an attack that could have hit the girl. He moved with such blinding speed it startled the attacker. Then he declared, "Even if it was just practice, it's dangerous to use attacking spells in class. What if someone gets hurt?" He warned his opponent. "Next time, be more attentive." The bewildered attacker couldn't even comprehend who had just intervened. At this moment, a girl entering the classroom asked what was going on. Arudo froze, almost afraid to turn around. This was the meeting he had long awaited. Turning, he saw Hannah standing directly in front of him. Approaching Hannah, Arudo casually explained that someone was merely practicing magic. He assured her everything was fine and told her not to worry about it. But Arudo's eyes welled up with tears as he considered the immense pain he was destined to endure. There was no way he could become involved with Hannah again, not this time. Only 5 years remained of his own life, if they were to rekindle their love. He would only have to abandon her once more, better to let them remain strangers. Better than forcing her through that agony. Besides, Hannah's death was only 4 months away. Arudo left the classroom, reassuring himself that everything was fine. But mentally, he made a vow to Hannah, "I will definitely protect you." From Hannah's perspective, though, she couldn't believe her eyes, for her seeing him here. Hannah Colonel was nothing short of a miracle. The Colonels were a venerable noble family. A senior noble family in the kingdom of Euphonia, as the family's heir, great hopes were pinned on her. Her parents even provided her with one of the world's finest mentors. Yet she seemed incapable of doing anything. The mentor, speaking to her parents, declared he had never encountered a person so utterly devoid of talent. Hannah silently observed the entire conversation from behind the doors. The mentor then explained that talent was an integral part of human development. Her own innate talent, he said, registered at an undeniable level 4. But at such a low level, nothing significant could ever be built from it. Forget about an excellent foundation. The mentor, though hesitant to upset them, stated it plainly: their daughter possesses no talent. 10 years of this. Time passed, and just like his mentor predicted, Hannah was failing at everything. No matter what she tried, she couldn't even level up once. Everyone gave up on her, even her own father. But despite her struggles, Hannah kept fighting, using some political connections to get into this school. The school, of course, couldn't let her incompetence go public. That would stain the esteemed Colonel family name, so Hannah had a plan. Be as invisible as possible, barely breathe, never get noticed. Never speak up. Just erase her own existence so no one could mock her, leaving her completely and utterly alone. But when she walked into that classroom, she felt it, a massive shift in her life. She remembered a talk with her mother about the person she was destined to marry. Her mom admitted she didn't know who he was, but promised that when they met, she would know instantly. It was fate. The moment she saw Arudo, she knew. He was the one. Meanwhile, Arudo was in the middle of training. The teacher told the class to swing their weapons like they were in a real fight. He shouted, "You can't cut corners in here. That's the entire point of martial arts. I'll fail anyone who slacks off." He sounded serious, but he wasn't really gonna fail them. Now watch this. As Arudo brandished his dagger, the teacher suddenly attacked him. Arudo dodged, asking why he'd just launched a surprise attack. The teacher demanded Arudo's weapon, saying he wasn't skilled enough to handle it. See, Arudo was holding a dragon fang dagger, an incredibly rare weapon crafted from the teeth of a dragon. The teacher asked where he got it. Arudo thought to himself, "I forged it after I killed the dragon," but he knew. Saying that out loud would just get him called a liar. The teacher then claimed he'd never get better if he only relied on his weapon. So he'd be confiscating the dagger until Arudo's skills improved. "Hand it over," he commanded. The other students started whispering that if their teacher, Levante, was a high-class adventurer, Arudo didn't stand a chance. Arudo just stood there silently. He was waiting to see what would happen next. The teacher lunged again, complaining about Arudo's slow reaction time, annoyed that he hadn't handed over the dagger already. But Arudo kept dodging, refusing to be beat. He realized this teacher was the real deal, a seriously high-level fighter. Levante, watching Arudo's evasions, wondered if a mere peasant was actually capable of dodging his attacks. He figured Arudo must just be lucky. Then he declared, "All right then, let's play a game of tag." Hearing this, Arudo was confused. The teacher laid out the terms. If Arudo could avoid being touched until the end of class, he could keep his dagger. But Arudo still couldn't figure out why this guy wanted his weapons so badly. Levante wasn't about to let him pass easily. Warming up, the teacher announced that refusing the challenge meant an automatic loss. No special treatment, even for a peasant. The game was on. With a shout, the teacher lunged at Arudo, who skillfully dodged every move. Despite his size, Levante moved with insane speed. Still, Arudo thought he was way less scary than fighting Magica. At the same time, the teacher was internally freaking out, wondering how Arudo evaded every strike, and you and I both know why. It was pure luck. Suddenly, Levante unleashes air magic, catching Arudo completely off guard. The teacher attacks, believing he's finally trapped him. However, his strike only smashes into the wall. He's in disbelief. Arudo has completely vanished. Arudo reappears right behind Levante, realizing just how close that call was. The teacher is dead serious, blasting him with non-stop offensive magic. The crowd roars for the teacher, cheering him on to keep up the pressure. Hannah, though, stays silent. Her eyes are locked right on Arudo. She's waiting to see what he'll do next as he dodges Levante's assault. Arudo wonders if his teacher is really this determined to take him down. Cornered, he reluctantly unleashes his distance reduction technique, and in an instant, watch this, he flickers right from his spot to a nearby tree. He thinks about how he just recently mastered this skill, an ability that lets him cover short distances at unbelievable speeds. Levante is getting more and more frustrated, unable to understand why Arudo is so slippery. At this rate, he knows he's going to lose. Just then, Arudo lands softly. He settles onto a tree branch. The teacher calls out, taunting him. He asks if Arudo really thinks he escaped, then points to the kid's torn clothes. Was he that fast? Levante can't believe he didn't even notice ripping his opponent's clothes. Victory is mine, but Arudo sees the ripped cloth and realizes something. He'd been watching every single move, and teacher Levante definitely never touched him. He figures it out. This is the wind. It's wind magic. Levante knows Arudo isn't the type to make baseless accusations, and yet one of the other students shouts that he definitely saw the teacher tag him. Another chimes in. But Hannah, standing nearby, knows these guys are lying. The human eye couldn't possibly distinguish anything at that kind of speed. Arudo realizes his situation is dire. You and I know this isn't about skill anymore. Then Levante holds out his hand. He demands Arudo's dragon's fang, just like they promised, but then someone shouts. They tell everyone to wait, declaring that the teacher never touched Arudo at all. It's Magica. She says she's been watching the entire match very carefully. Arudo drops down from the tree, asking Magica what she's even doing here. She says she was just passing by, then gets straight to the point. Is this man really a teacher? She asks, turning her gaze on Levante. The teacher looks at the girl. He immediately recognizes a huge risk. Magica is a state-level threat. He knows arguing with her would be big trouble, so he just concedes that it might be so. Acknowledging her special vision, Levante turns his attention back to Arudo. He warns him that even if this is a game, things could get ugly if Arudo loses. Especially with Magica here now, so Levante suggests they just start the whole thing over again. He then unleashes a wind cutter. Trust me, this is proof he's the real deal. He explains it's an advanced technique, one that infuses magic directly into his hands, turning them into weapons. He then challenges Arudo to even try and dodge it. The next moment, Levante attacks, convinced he's got Arudo cornered for good. This magic doesn't just increase his range, it launches blades of wind all around his target. Watching Arudo, Levante sees nothing more than a simple student. If he dies here, it could easily be passed off as just an unfortunate accident. The training sending an attack flying to cleave Arudo. Arudo concentrates, feeling the piercing sharpness of the wind blades. He knows he has to avoid this. Even a single blow from this insane level of magic, but Arudo, he weaves through every single blade. The teacher, Levante, is floored. He's thinking, there's no way a total weakling at the first level of life can do this. You and I know he's a beast, but doubt is creeping in. Could someone actually break the limits of his rank? Levante tries to reason it away. Must be a fluke, maybe I'm just having an off day. He's trying to hype himself up. Still, the doubt won't go away. Levante draws his sword. As a teacher, there's no way he can accept losing to Arudo. He charges straight at him, blade raised. Arudo can't believe it. Levante drew a real sword. This is getting out of hand. The lesson's almost over. If he can just dodge this one last attack, he'll win. But just then, the other students start getting suspicious. They question how Arudo keeps dodging everything. Convinced he's using some cheap trick, they mock him, telling him to fight honestly like a man. Then they grab him. They pin Arudo by the legs, telling him to attack Levante while they hold him down. Now watch this because it's about to get ugly. Arudo is completely helpless as Levante closes in. The other students just laugh, but Hannah alone has a chilling thought. Is the teacher seriously about to kill him? Levante just scoffs inside. He thinks he can snuff out a level 1 newbie like it's nothing. He refuses to lose to a kid like Arudo. Levante brings his sword down. A silent command for Arudo to just die. The lesson has mere seconds left. Arudo activates a hacking skill. Instantly, the teacher's sword flies out of his hand. Levante is stunned. How did his blade just move on its own? Then, Arudo uses a distance reduction technique, blinking to another spot in an instant, still dragging the students who are clinging to his legs. Following that, Arudo activates Grave and Argalization. Just like that, the teacher is defeated. Arudo declares him unfit, blinded by greed and pride, then drops the ball. Right next to him, the final seconds tick away and the clock buzzes. The lesson is over. Arudo won. The students, still holding his leg, just stare, unable to process their teacher's defeat. Arudo calmly says the lesson is over and asks them to let him go. The shocked students slowly release his feet. After the lesson, everyone is buzzing about the fight. They talk about teacher Levante, praising how cool he was and saying they could never copy his moves. They wonder if they could ever hope to be that impressive. Arudo walks behind the group, and that's when he realizes it. No one remembers him, and I know what you're thinking. Some crazy magic is at play here. Just then, Magica runs up and smacks Arudo. He has no idea why she's calling him careless, criticizing him for being fooled by a simple backstab. As punishment, he now has to join her training after school. Dejected, Arudo tells her he was planning on working on his blacksmithing skills today. He then says he never lost his dagger and tells Magica to forget it, but she's not having it. The whole time, Hannah watches them from a distance. Later, as the sun goes down, she begins her own solo training. But as she trains, she can only think about Arudo. Why did no one praise him? Sure, the teacher was skilled, but was she the only one who saw Arudo completely outclass him? People didn't notice, but sometimes Arudo even closed his eyes during the attacks. How did he do all that as a mere level 1? And that's the question you and I are both asking. A level 4 herself, she felt she'd never be able to imitate Arudo, believing she lacked the talent. Shaking her head, she tried to dismiss those doubts, but a natural gift. That isn't something you can just replace with hard work. Arudo probably trained like an absolute monster. Gripping her sword, the girl decided that she too could achieve something if she just gave it her all, but the next second, she dropped it. The sword hit the floor as she winced in pain. Her hands were bruised, tears welling in her eyes, but she resolved to get stronger, not for someone else but for herself. Just then, Arudo entered the training hall, running right into Hannah. He quickly apologized, explaining he hadn't seen any signs that the room was occupied. Hannah told him to wait, asking if they could have a quick chat. At first, Arudo pretended he couldn't hear, but when she repeated herself, he just stared silently at the door. Hannah sat right down on the floor. She introduced herself as Hannah Colonel, commenting on Arudo's incredible skill. I mean, you and I both know no regular student could dodge teacher Levante. She had to ask how Arudo got so strong. He just stood there, struggling internally. He was painfully aware of the 5 years he had left. If I get close to Hana now, he thought, I'll only make her sad in the future. He decided then to just watch over her from a distance. Without even turning, Arudo said his strength was just the result of a lot of training, and then she grabbed his hand. Both of them froze, totally embarrassed. Hana quickly pulled her hand away. She turned, apologizing for being so bold and regretting the impulsive touch. Arudo just looked at Hana, a small smile playing on his lips. Yep, she was exactly how he remembered her from back then. Hana snapped him out of it, pleading for him to just listen. If it wasn't too much trouble, she asked if Arudo would consider training with her. She confessed that despite her best efforts, she wasn't seeing any real results. Even with great teachers guiding her, she was making zero progress and just falling further behind. Turning to Arudo, she admitted she had this feeling that if he taught her, things would finally work out. Then she quickly apologized for being so forward. Arudo listened as she fretted. And now pay attention to this part. He noticed her hands covered in wounds. A sharp pang hit him. His chance to actually talk to her was slipping away. He had no idea what the right call was, and yet he found himself completely unable to refuse the desperate request from someone so diligent and so beloved from his past life. Arudo replied that if she truly wanted it, he would lend her all of his strength and help. Hana's face lit up, and she extended her hand, thanking him profusely. They shook on it. She swore she'd do absolutely everything in her power. Arudo smiled, saying, "That's what I like to hear. Let's both do our best." Suddenly, a loud voice shouted, "We heard everything." A bewildered Hana looked up, totally startled. Lion was standing right there. He declared, "A friend of a friend is a friend, too," while a girl peeked from behind him. "And trust me, you're gonna want to hear this." He called it Operation 100 Friends. Extending his hand to Hana, he offered a super friendly greeting. He introduced himself as Lion and asked if he could just call her Hana. She just nodded, flustered. Seeing Lion, Arudo grumbled, "Friends of friends, what are you even talking about? We're not even friends." Lion looked absolutely crushed, and Arudo had to wonder. Tries to calm him down. Meanwhile, Magica introduces herself to Hana. Magica a state terror, though she says just Magica is fine, as they shake hands. Noting the fancy three-part name, Hana asks if Magica is some kind of royalty. And Magica casually explains that, yeah, she's from a former royal family. The squirrel family lost its power, and the royal bloodline just isn't what it used to be. Lion and Arudo are listening to this whole exchange. Suddenly, Lion cuts in. He demands to know why nobody ever told him she was a royal. Magica just deadpans that it's because she never mentioned it. Obvious, right? Lion absolutely explodes, shouting that if she was blessed with royal blood, then his own super-rare heroic talents are nothing in comparison to hers. He looks over at Magica, saying, "I just thought she was the quiet type. How could a creature this small actually be part of a royal bloodline?" And just like that, the bickering starts. Classic. Arudo and Hana just watch. Hana turns to Arudo, quietly asking if they should probably step in. But Arudo reassures her, saying Lion is surprisingly strong now and will be fine. Before, he couldn't even handle a single demon. Now, he's strong enough to go toe-to-toe with Magica. Arudo knew Hana would get there too. She was going to get stronger. A few days later, the crew heads out into a forest not far from Euphonia. It's training time. Arudo introduces Hana and Slime to the team dynamic. They start tackling all kinds of obstacles and challenges together. Arudo keeps checking in on Hana, asking if she's holding up all right. She is. That's when Magica asks the big question, what's Hana's level? She admits she's level 4, but has 0 talent, so her skills are all stuck at level 1. Now pay attention, because their reaction is priceless. Magica and Lion stare. They ask if she's joking. How can someone have absolutely no innate talent? Hana apologizes, as Arudo tells Lion to watch what he says. But then Lion declares it's a great thing, shocking everyone. He explains that while a gift helps you grow, it doesn't define your only path. Your abilities aren't tied to one lifestyle, and not having a gift just means you get to forge your very own way. Isn't that amazing? He asks. Okay, I know what you're thinking, and yeah, Lion was actually right. Hannah had never heard anyone look at her talent deficiency that way before. Arudo remarks that it's a brilliant idea. He can't believe it came from Lion. Magica confesses she just always assumed Lion was a total idiot. Everyone stares at Lion, who asks why they all think so poorly of him. They finally arrive at a lake, deciding it's the perfect training spot. Hannah asks if they're just going to be practicing on trees since they're in a forest. But Arudo explains that this training is going to be the real deal. From this moment on, Hannah would be facing actual, live monsters. The news hits her like a truck. She stares at Arudo, saying there's no way. She can't just suddenly kill a monster. Her level is 1, did he forget? All three of them just stare back at her, their expressions fixed. She insists again, without any experience, she can't possibly fight them. Arudo pulls something from his bag, telling her everything's fine. He won't let her get hurt. And you and I both know what happens next. Goblins materialize right in front of them. Okay, maybe luring this many goblins was overkill, but stick with me, Arudo has a plan. He gathers his friends, huddling them close as he whispers his strategy. And they get it instantly. This plan, it's absolutely brilliant. Lion even calls him a master. Both he and Magica are fired up and ready for war. Arudo then hands a sword to Hannah, declaring that it's time to begin. But Hannah hesitates, admitting she's not ready. Arudo just shows his complete trust in his companions, and with that, they all charge straight into the fight. Magica effortlessly weaves through the goblin horde, leaping back as she realizes that picking them off one by one is just a waste of time, so she unleashes an area attack. Her power is on another level compared to these grunts. This is just Magica's usual style. Meanwhile, Arudo activates a glowing stone and jumps right into the fight. Hannah can only watch, totally stunned by her friend's incredible strength. But just then, a goblin lunges from the bushes, and she realizes she's completely frozen. And right here, this is where it gets real. Arudo instantly flashes in to protect her. He dispatches the goblin and turns to Hannah, asking if she's okay. She says she's fine, but shaken. Arudo then realizes the time is right. Just then, Lion gets completely swarmed by goblins, screaming that he messed up and that he's a goner for sure. Hannah sees Lion get buried under a mountain of goblins and cries out in panic. She turns to Arudo, yelling that Lion is in serious trouble. Arudo casually swats a goblin away, apologizes for being a bit busy, and then calmly tells Hannah to go save him. Hearing this, she protests that there's no way she can, but Arudo just assures her it'll all be fine. The monsters are completely focused on Lion, giving Hannah a wide-open shot from behind, but she's still riddled with self-doubt. Arudo, on the other hand, knows everything is going exactly to plan. See, Arudo's strategy was all about using Lion's special abilities, his amazing talent for distraction, his insane physical defense, and the fact that he's literally immortal. These traits allow Lion to be the goblin's main target, basically forever. With Lion drawing all the attention, Hannah should be able to handle the other threats. She and Magica can then clean up whatever goblins are left. The real question, though, was whether Hannah actually had the courage to take down the monsters. Right now, she's clutching her sword with trembling hands, overwhelmed by fear. But if not her, then who? Trying to remember her training, she attacks a goblin from behind, managing to injure it. Tears well up in her eyes. Magica notices the wound isn't fatal, but she suspects the damage to Hannah's mind is way worse. Arudo watches Hannah, who is visibly terrified. Her friend was just attacked in front of her. And now she's blaming herself for freezing up, agonizing over how weak she is. And this is the moment we've been waiting for. Arudo calls out, telling her she can do it. His voice is filled with absolute confidence. Hannah grips her sword, her resolve hardening inside her. She finally wants to become stronger. If Arudo is right there with her, she feels she can finally find the courage to be strong, so Hannah charges towards the goblins. Swinging her sword with newfound power, her inner voice declaring she's done with self-pity. Determined to become strong, she pushes forward relentlessly. Suddenly, a goblin fires an arrow at her back, but Magica snatches it midair, scolding the goblin for interfering and sending the arrow right back with equal force. Hannah dives back in, cleaving through one goblin and then another, a wave of pure confidence washing over her. But just as she's feeling it, pay attention here, Hannah stumbles, almost blacking out. Arudo catches her just in time, his voice filled with concern as he asks if she's all right. She apologizes to Arudo, saying she just felt dizzy. But he tells her that's the feeling of leveling up. Hannah's face lights up, her mind racing. She did it, she actually did it. Then, the floodgates open, and she starts crying on Arudo's shoulder. She has waited for this exact moment for all 15 of her years. Their moment is cut short by Lion, who grumbles about how long he's been left lying under a pile of dead goblins. Arudo sheepishly admits he had completely forgotten he was even there. Hannah, meanwhile, asks how Lion can be so calm. Still bleeding and pinned down, Lion just declares himself pretty brave, saying these monsters couldn't really harm him. That's when Arudo reveals. And get this, the entire thing was a plan to build up her courage. Hearing that, Hannah finally understands everything. She lets go of Arudo, who then suggests they take a break until she's calmed down. But Hannah replies that she's fine and ready to keep going. Arudo smiles at her and agrees. First, he calls his slime Rue and asks it to fetch his sword. He then offers Hannah this very blade, a sword forged from actual dragon bone. Arudo explains that this weapon was crafted from dragon bone specifically for her, using her own blacksmithing skills as the foundation. Taking the blade, Hannah thinks it's absolutely beautiful. But right behind her, more goblins are moving in to attack.